The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
The top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
And we are back for another Tuesday night, you guys, live with the OGs, my mentors in this comic book game, Mr. Jesse James from Jesse James Comics and Dennis Barger from Wonder World Comics. We got a fun show tonight. This is an excellent, I tell everybody on the show when I explain this show, I'm like, it's just me, the guy who doesn't know anything about the industry, that's being the goofball, that's asking the weird questions and getting to kind of just, enjoy myself. Well, tonight I'm really going to enjoy this one. Dennis, why don't you introduce our guest?
All right. Well, this is a guy who, when I met him, never met him before. And, I'm honestly telling you, this is a guy I've seen handle some of the toughest situations like a pro before he ever became the pro. And he's been a good friend of mine this whole time. And he's one of those guys that when we started this show, I was like, I've got to get him to come on our show so you can hear the conversations that we have, so that everybody out there gets the next level stuff that John and I are thinking up in our head every time we meet. Ladies and gentlemen, John Tyler Christopher.
Hell yeah.
What up, y'all? Thank you so much for having me.
This is great, man.
Yes.
Thanks for jumping on. Excellent. I'm going to move you guys around here because put the two guys down there. And
big money, no whammy, and stop.
We were talking backstage about the same thing that anybody brings up with Dennis is the fact that if you're going to go on a show with Dennis, there's always ample opportunity to get in trouble. And I thought that was super cool to see that on your social media tonight, John.
Look, Dennis and I have closed down far too many bars at far too many shows, having conversations that I'm pretty sure both of us are bugged at this point based on some of the stuff we've discussed. Like, we kind of almost, nothing has ever been off limits to us. So it's always a pleasure to chat with him, man. And I don't know, Dennis, do you want to just get into how we met? That to me is one of those epic stories, man.
Let's give a little background here.
All right.
So, and I'm gonna throw you under the bus just a little bit.
Oh, by all means.
So when Marvel announced we're doing Star Wars variants, I immediately called my people over at Marvel, and I'm like, we're doing Star Wars. Star Wars is coming home, and I said, I want to do a variant of the original 12-back figure on the card, on the cover, and they're like, I'm sorry, Dennis, but we can't let you do that. I was like, come on. And what about this or what about that? No, action figures is going to be something that we hold for ourselves. Okay. So then when the toys get in, or the comics get announced, I don't know who the hell John Tyler Christopher is. No offense. I love you. I'm like, what the hell? John Tyler Christopher action figure variant. Well, this looks great. It's pretty much what I wanted to do, except for I was just going to be lazy and take a picture of a toy. This is way better. So Star Wars #1 comes out. I'm on all of the action figure groups already on Facebook, and I'm sharing, hey guys, they're doing these action figure variants for the comic books. I bought 100 of every one of the first batch, the first 6. So I'm like, hey, anybody wants these? We're selling them for $10 a piece, blah, blah, blah. Just get a hold of me. These aren't action figures. Fuck you. Get off of our forum. Okay. Then Han Solo comes out. All the retailers dump their orders. David Gabriel put you have to match your Star Wars #1 with Star Wars #2 if you want to order the Han Solo variant. I'm like, match it. I'm ordering more. Fuck this. Then I found out, apparently only 25% of the retailers that got Star Wars #1 participated and got Han Solo variant. So like 75% of the retailers were immediately out of the action figure game. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I have no idea. I'm just trucking along. And then all of a sudden, a buddy of mine sends me a link to C2E2. Hey, that's a convention I go to. There's going to be a special Boba Fett cover that gets released. I'm like, cool, I'll show up. Then I'm watching some YouTube channel. Wait, is it that way? No, that way. I'm watching some YouTube channel talking about how these things are selling for $100 a piece. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I stroll in on day one of the con, never talked to John, never did anything. I look on the little map. Where's this John Tyler Christopher guy? Oh, right there. Okay. I stroll up, and John, you take it over.
So, okay, can I give a little backstory as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, funny thing about this whole Star Wars thing was like I was facing the grind of comic books back then. This was like 2013, I want to say. I was on the cusp of just quitting. Like, to be bluntly honest with you, like I was working, 100-hour weeks. I was burned out. It was really affecting my marriage, my relationship with my children. Like, it was no bueno. And so I had a big talk with my wife, like almost like they almost had an intervention, and they're like, you got to cut back on this. Like, we can't do this anymore, and respect. I'm like, I'm good. Like, let's cut this back. Well, lo and behold, I get an email from Marvel, like literally the next day. And it's like, hey, we just got a property back called Star something. We can't discuss it yet, but if you're interested. And my first reaction was like, dude, is it Star Crash with David Hasselhoff? Because if so, I might have to stick around with this. And he's like, no, it's Star Wars. And I've got this idea that's something we think you'd be perfect for. It's my buddy George Balliard, which if any of you have ever met George Balliard, he is one of the best people in all of comics. He's one of the few people I not only like professionally work with, but I consider a dear friend. And so George was like, we want you to do these action figure covers. And I was like, oh, this will be awesome. Yeah, I'm totally down with this. This will be great. To the point that, like, when I started to realize, like, I promised my wife just yesterday, I'm not taking on any more work. Like, I've got to finish up what I got. So literally the first, like, 5 Star Wars action figure covers, I started at 11 o'clock at night and only worked from 11 o'clock till about 5 o'clock in the morning every night to be able to complete those projects. So I did them. I was really happy with them. I was like, this could lead to something big. Like this is kind of the break I've been waiting for. Well, for the longest time, like I'm a professional artist, like, and I want to make sure I establish this. Like, I view business as much a part of who I am as an artist. I don't even hide it. I'm a B+ artist at best, but I'm an A+ business person. Like, I know my shit. So, like, I got no problem. Like, dude, there are so many artists that if I could be half as good as they are, I would fucking kill for it. But it ain't gonna ever happen. So one of the things I'd been like working in my brain for the longest time was like, hey, I'm doing all these variants for people. If I ever had something super sweet, I'd like to do a variant for myself. And along comes the Star Wars thing. I do a signing for the first issue, and it's getting like really well received. So when I finally get back, I think it was the signing in Boston, and I get back to Indiana, and I basically call up George, and I'm like, hey, George, I have a weird question. Can I do a variant for myself? And George's like, no artist has ever asked this. And I'm like, I'm pleased to be the first, kind of a thing. So basically we had to work through all this red tape initially, because it was a matter of like, I had to incorporate, I had to get a comic book store, I had to do all these like things that now we don't have to do. But at the time, for legal purposes and the way the system was set up, the SOP was, this is what I had to do. So I did it, and I was like, I want to do Boba Fett if that's cool. And they're just like, yeah, sure. We're just doing like the first, 12 of these or 13 of these. So it's like, yeah, you can do Boba Fett. It's not a big deal. So I signed up Boba Fett for issue number 4. And I was like, man, I'm really excited about this. Like, I developed this entire ad campaign around it. Since no one had ever done this before, I didn't have a website or anything. So like, I had this whole promotional campaign to try and get people to come to my site. So I was like, we'll launch it. on a certain day, and then every day I'll launch part of this ad campaign to drive traffic to it. So we put it up at midnight, and I had to work an all-nighter that night. So I'm working, and all of a sudden my phone beeps, and I never heard this beep before in my life. And it's a WooCommerce ding, basically saying, like, somebody bought. And I'm like, holy shit, like, it's been up for 15 minutes, and someone bought my comic. Like, I can't wait to tell my wife about this in the morning. She's going to be so stoked. We sold a comic book last night.
Right.
Bing, 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 bing.
Yeah.
I heard that sound for 8 hours straight. We sold about 3,200 books in the first 7 hours. My wife woke up and I'm like, Jen, I just made more money last night than I have the past 3 years combined.
And you just set the
and you were selling them for like $15 a piece, right?
$20.
$20.
So when I first, because part of the campaign was also, I called up every comic book store that had ever invited me out for a signing. And I was like, hey man, I just want to let you know I'm doing this Boba Fett action figure. I'm going to be selling it on my website for $20. Like, would you be interested in buying? I'll sell it to you for like 15. And not one person wanted to take me up on it. And I was like, hey, it's cool, man. Like, you know, I started to get nervous because I'm like, fuck, no one's going to buy this damn thing. Like, I'm just going to take a bath on it. And so, yeah, we're selling like hotcakes to the point that, like, in the morning when my web guy woke up, I had to call him. I'm like, dude, I need you to shut this off because I can't sell out because I've already made a commit. Part of the campaign was also we're going to promote it and take it to C2E2. And if I sell out, I'm going to go to C2E2 empty-handed, and all these people that are coming to buy this book are going to get pissed. So, like, we had to stop the sale short. Marvel calls me, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it's like, dude, like, people are talking about this book. Like, you stopped selling. I'm like, I basically had to sell out. I mean, I had to stop because if we didn't, like, we're not going to have any, like, explaining it. And they're like, you need to jack the prices up on these. And I'm like, that would be really shitty. I'm not going to do that. Like, you know, because, and we'll get into this whole philosophy later. But, like, so at this point now, I've got a very small amount of books left. And
go ahead, tell everybody, because I don't think you've ever shared the number publicly, have you? What the total print run was?
I know I usually don't share my print runs with people.
But this one in particular, though, you can share.
It was 5.
It was what?
It was 5.
5,000, right?
Yeah.
Which is 2,000 more than Marvel usually makes people order. Which I think Marvel tried to hose you a little bit on that.
Well, I'm glad they did.
Exactly. That's what I wanted. I wanted to get that part of the story out because if I called Marvel, they'd be like, "Well, Dennis, you have to order 3,000." Somehow they sold you on 5,000 and it benefited you that much more.
Yes. No. I'm so grateful. So we get to C2E2. Now I'm in this conundrum, right? Like I've never done this before, and it needs to be established also. Like as a comic book person, I'm not much of a collector. When I buy action figures, I take them out of the box, I pose them. When I buy a comic book, I read the comic. I mean, I'll buy variants and I'll buy collectibles all the time, but like, I'm going to read that damn comic book. Like like that's the kind of person it's not until very recently I started doing like CGC stuff and all that other things just because I'm like, I want this to hang on the wall and I want to protect it from sunlight and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't even know really how this market worked. So I'm just kind of going off of what my personal ethos is and how I believe, like, what's the ethical way of doing this. So the fact that I already sold like 3,200 or whatever of it, and a bunch of grades and all this other stuff, I basically was like, I can't sell them at 20 at C2E2. I never told people what the price was going to be. Because if I sell them at that price, I'm screwed. They're going to be able to buy the book from me and get it in hand and then start selling it on the secondary market and screw over all the people that bought from me.
You haven't told the best part of the story yet.
Well, this is coming to you.
No. I'm nothing.
Oh,
JTC,
stop.
come on. You have no infrastructure to mail out 3,200 books.
We were figuring it out as it was going along. Yes. No, my house was full of 25 Purdue students one night. We played all 6 Star Wars movies at the time on loop. Kids just came and went and packed. So anyway, I didn't know what to do with these books. Like, I'm going to sell these damn things to these people, and they're going to be able to flip them immediately. They're going to screw over the people that have already bought them. So I'm like, here's what I want to do. I'm going to basically sell them at the approximately the eBay price, but slightly cheaper. So it's like you can still make a profit off of this book, but you're not going to be able to dictate the market opposed to the people that have already got them and are procuring orders with these books. So most people are totally cool. They're like, the book was going, I think Dennis at the time, it was going for like 85.
80 to 100. 80 to 100.
So I think I was selling it for like 60. Yep. I was like, dude, like right now you could go online and sell it on eBay.
We both win.
Right away, make $20. You're making, like, I'm giving you $20 at this point. Well, this one guy just comes up and just starts, he's like, you know, I want like 5 of them or something. And there's this weird guy with like a beard behind him, just kind of like checking out the scenes, you know, just kind of creeping, if you will. So this guy's like, well, I'll take 10 of them or whatever it was. And I'm like, cool, it'll be, you know, $600. And he's like, no, you're selling them for 20. You sold them for 20 on your site. And I'm like, yeah, I did. And I explained the situation. And I'm like, there's $60 here, man. I'm super sorry. I'll do what I can. And this guy proceeds to just lay into me. Like he's going for blood at this point. And I'm like a deer in headlights because I'm like, I don't want to be a dick. Like I'm trying to work with this guy, but like I also can't, you know, if I sell it to him for 20, now everyone that bought it for 60 is going to get pissed at me. Everyone that bought the book at 20 is going to be pissed at. Like I didn't know what the fuck to do. So all of a sudden, the strange bearded man walks up and he's like, he just like kind of like gets in between the guy and me. And he's like, I'm sorry, are you selling these for 60? Because if you are, I'll buy every single one of them you got because that's just $20 free in my pocket right now. And the guy like kind of looked at me like, oh, shit. And there's like a line behind even Dennis. And it's like, Dennis diffused the situation for me and set a pace for like, anyone that wanted to give me shit about it, but all they needed to do is ask the person in line of like, don't, because there's a guy right over there that's willing to buy all of them right now. Because I was like, that's really kind of you, bearded man, but like, I can't sell you all of them because then I'm going to screw over all these people in line. And
well, and I'll pause that story for 1 second too. I'm pretty sure this guy was what I like to call a New Jack flipper, and this is really early days of these New Jack flippers. I think he had already pre-sold because he knew he was going to C2E2, and he had pre-sold a bunch of them for 80 or 100 on eBay. And he was just trying to do the shorts buy to fill his orders that he had already sold.
Gotcha. Yeah, dude, I grew up on a farm, man. You don't count your chickens till they hatch.
Exactly.
Right. You know, I've run into that since then of people selling books before they'll try and get them after sell it. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what to tell you, man. But it was just one of those things that like Dennis saved my keister that day. And ever since then, man, like, you know, we started chatting. And
well, it's not even that too. It was a weird karma thing because I go to the same place to smoke every C2E2.
Yeah, I was smoking back then, so you and I were just we'd go out and just
and then like, oh, hey, you're that bearded guy. Hey, how's it going, man? Oh, good. And then we both went to Israel Adonijah. Remember the?
Oh my gosh, the NFL player. Yeah, we went to that party.
We went to that party, and I'm just sitting over there chilling and enjoying. And you walk in, I'm like, hey, it's that guy. Hey, yeah, it's the guy. And we just talked at the party. Like that whole weekend, we were like just bumping into each other randomly.
Yeah, and just kind of became buddies ever since, man.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what's funny is you caused the biggest ruckus in eBay history, you know, because we were getting these action figures, and what would happen is you'd say JTC, action figure, whatever, Boba Fett, Star Wars, right? Now, all of a sudden, we start getting these negatives. I'm thinking, I've never got a negative. I'm like a primo seller on eBay. I've been doing this for 42 years. I know what back then, about 36 years. I know what I'm doing. And then I go say, hey, dude, what's going on? What's wrong with your comic? Well, you know, I got a comic book. I thought I was getting an action figure. And so we had to actually reword everything based on the success of your covers, right?
And a B-level artist isn't going to have that happen. So just a heads up there.
So it was very interesting to see, you know, because the old saying is you got artists and then you have artists that create. And you created something that no one had actually seen before in the e-commerce world. In a comic book store, you walk up and you say, oh, it's a comic.
Yeah.
This was awesome, right? So it's kind of funny how that craze has started just by your books to rephrase.
You did two things, right? Those action figure variants, that's the story I always think of when I see an action figure variant is, and I always bring this up on the channel, that I think that your art, the face art for the action figure variants is some of the best comic book cover art there is. So you did that, and then at the same time, you set the blueprint for every other comic book artist out there to finally make money on their own art.
That is what I consider more a success than anything. Like that is what I'm most proud of than any of that. Just real, I know want to go back to that. Just real quick to your story of the action figures though on eBay. You have no idea the number of emails we would get from people when we'd send them their product with the exclusives, and they'd be like, "I thought I bought an action figure."
Yep.
And we have like a really great return policy. Like customer service is number one for us. Like I really pride myself on customer service. So we would literally just be like, "We will gladly pay for you to return this book and refund you, but before we do, you might want to go onto eBay and see what it's going for right now." And 100% of the time we get people that respond like, "No, I'm good. We'll keep it. Thanks." Yep. So I was like, cool, man.
Yeah.
They might not be the comic books, but they love money.
At that time, we sold all of them on Amazon, and we had to come up with this elaborate, this is not an action figure in bold type. This is a comic book cover that depicts action figures. It is a two-dimensional comic book full of pictures. This is not an action figure. It was like, reiterate, you know.
And what's funny is now that I think about it, imagine if you're a person selling toys during that time.
Yeah.
And people are like, hey, I thought I was getting a comic book. I got a toy, right?
But Brian, to your point, like one of the major things for me, like I'm a very, this industry ain't big enough for us to be fighting amongst ourselves and for us to be bickering. Like nothing infuriates me more than when artists are shitty to fans or shitty to publishers, or publishers are shitty to fans or to artists.
Or worse, to each other.
To each other. Like this industry ain't big enough for us to be against each other. We need to be a well-oiled machine. And so when I did this with Marvel, I didn't just say, I want to do this. How can I do it? It was, how can we develop an ecosystem within Marvel to allow other people to do it? And so when I first started announcing Boba Fett, man, I'm not a big social media person. And one of the reasons for that is that every time back then, before I was part of my business, my experiences on the internet were just fucking awful. They were always terrible. And when I first launched Boba Fett, I was getting hate mail. Not just from retailers who I kind of expected would be a little pissed, like, who's this artist thinking he is selling his own book without us? And it was like, I own a comic book store now. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
But I got hate. I was getting, people were sending me tweets that do screen captures of tweets and other things from other artists that were talking shit about me.
Yeah.
Of like, who's this asshole think he is? Like, who is he to sell his own comic book? Like, you know, who is this guy? He does, like, he's a nobody and yada yada. And I'm like, and these are names of people like I immensely respected. I know I'll never say some of the names because I admire them still to this day. I'm cool with a lot of them. I don't know if they ever knew that I saw their stuff, but it broke my heart because I was like, guys, look, like we're just doing real talk. Dennis and I have a policy of like, we just don't sugarcoat shit.
Well, that means we get into our special time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Hold on.
Push the button, bro.
Valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
And we're back.
Okay. I am a big proponent of option C, as I refer to it as. Like most people in the world, when they're presented with something, they come with like, there's option A or B. Either do it, you don't, whatever, yada yada. Like it's a very dichotomic concept. And I'm always like, well, what's my option C? So one of the challenges I was facing in comics was I was working 100 hours a week, and I was making a lot less money than I ever was making when I was back being a designer or working in television. I was also like no insurance, no benefits, no nothing. And again, I know who I am, and that's one of my greatest strengths. I know that's what I'm saying. Like, I know where I am artistically. I'm not going to try and claim that I'm like as good as Art Germ or David Nakayama or any of these other people. Like, I'm not, and that's cool. Like, that's cool, man. They're amazing, but I'm really smart, and that's my strength. Like, I'm good at business. So one of the things I realized is like, look, Marvel's never going to pay me what I could make per hour the way I was before. And here's something like I'll talk to you guys about selling prints at shows, because this guy started it. I've always looked for new ways to create revenue streams, especially for myself, but also then for other people, because I am a lifelong comic book fan. I want comic books to make money. But there is a reality of how much money comic books make. And I know what my value is, and I know how much Marvel would be willing to pay me.
And you can't count how many of the greatest artists that everybody in the audience knows died penniless.
Oh my God, it's the most heartbreaking shit I've ever seen. Dude, that's the kind of stuff that angers me when I'm sitting next to people that's like, oh, you worked on Captain America in like the 50s or whatever, and you're here to like, so you can pay your rent this month. Fuck that noise.
Right.
So I realize what I can get paid and what I'm worth. Marvel's not going to pay me more. I'm not getting royalties based on my covers. But what if I can create a new revenue stream that everyone makes money at? Then no one's going to want to get in my way or put a limit on what I can do. I can create my own terms and create my own limits. So the structure that I set up with Marvel was such that when it came to like Boba Fett, people are always like, well, man, how'd you get Boba Fett? How'd you get this? And I'm like, because I paid them for it. Like 10,000 comic books ain't cheap. Like, or 5,000 comic books ain't cheap. Right. And 5,000, I mean, even back then when the prices were substantially lower than they are now.
Yeah.
That's back when you could get a deal from Marvel for $2 a book.
Yeah. I never got that, but cool.
Right, sure.
To the point that like one of my proudest revelations in the past 3 years was that I'm a black line for Marvel. I pay Marvel more money than Marvel pays me.
Right.
At the end of the day. And I'm making more money now in the comic book industry than I have ever made in my entire life. And it's like, this is something that, and when people would come to me, like all these people that were talking smack about me, when people would come up to C2E2 and be like, dude, what the fuck was going on there? I'm like, this is what I did. Here's the email, the gentleman you need to contact. Talk to him. Tell him you spoke to me and that you're interested in doing your own book. I had vendors coming up to me of comic book stores, and they're just like, so how did that one? And I'm like, dude, this is what I like. No secrets.
But also, and I always reiterate this, my 10 rules I learned from Gary Reed: always share your knowledge freely.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what the crazy part about this is reverse engineering of crowdfunding, right? Because crowdfunding, you have the consumer pay for your product so you can create it, where you're turning around saying, no, I'm going to pay for my own product up front, and I'm going to create my destiny, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of unique how that.
It's old school capitalism, man.
Yeah,
it's like you build product, you create it, and you sell it to people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's and it just.
We always talk about investing in yourself, and this is like 101. Artists rarely ever invest in themselves. I know one comic book creator who invested in himself, and I'm going to completely screw this up. And I even had him at my booth at C2E2. Who wrote Amazing Fantasy 15 First Amadeus Cho?
Let me look it up.
Remember we had him at our booth at C2E2 Chicago? God, chat, help us out if you know.
Are you Greg Pack?
Greg Pack.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Yeah. Greg Pack, I brought a giant stack of Amazing Fantasy 15s to him, and he was like, "Oh, you're the only person that has as many as I do, and I think I have more than you," because he believed in that character so much, he bought his own book to have quantity of it if that character ever took off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just those things that when you run across people, there are people who understand this principle and there are people who don't.
Well, I think there are other people that understand it, but unfortunately there's certain also financial barriers to get across with it. And it's one of the things that really has frustrated me recently with how what started as to me a wonderful opportunity for Marvel to get higher level talent that maybe they couldn't even afford to do covers for them, in exchange for giving them the opportunity to do their own exclusives.
Yes.
So it's like, hey, and I'm just like throwing out a name.
Adam Hughes.
Like, hey, Drew Struzan, do you want to do a comic book? Because this nobody over here is pulling in 6 figures off of a book.
Well, and it's
what you could do, Drew Struzan, if you do one cover for us at the rate we can pay you, Drew Struzan, can make $1 million selling your Avengers freaking beautiful Star Wars-esque movie poster cover, kind of style.
Yes.
Well, and I'll just throw this out there too. If you keep feeding the artist the front end of doing regular covers for Marvel and allow them to make 6 figures on their own websites, J. Scott Campbell doesn't do a whole hell of a lot of DC covers after that.
100%. But
John, you're bringing up something that I think is one of the biggest questions that I've had in the comic book industry stuff for a long time. And I can't ask these guys, but I can ask you, and I think I know what you're going to say, but at one point there was a moment where I remember Adam Hughes, an Adam Hughes cover was going to get turned into a foil variant for another retailer, okay, for an exclusive retailer. And Adam Hughes' wife, I believe, saw this and was like, how come Marvel didn't offer that to us? Why don't they do that? That should be their first their first person to ask, I feel like, should be the artist. Hey, we're going to reprint your art. We're going to foilize it. Do you want to sell it as an exclusive? Why don't they do that?
For a while, they did at one point. They did a deal where they did a limited number of a negative space. So the negative space, like the funny thing with negative space is that's become kind of a new thing for me over the past few years, but I've been like doing those since high school. And in fact, when I started doing prints, long story short, I'm going to go to the print story real quick. So I used to work at the Home Depot, and I was the guy that made the stupid little flyers at the Home Depot. So whenever you were going to the Home Depot and they had a paper flyer, this guy. So I'd moved to Atlanta for that job. And one of the guys I worked with was this dude named Tariq Hassan. And Tariq was like, I decorated my cubicle with art that I had done, like comic book art because I was a comic book fan. I wanted to draw comic books. That's all I ever wanted to do for a living, man. So he's like, hey, we're looking for another studio, mate. Would you be interested in joining our studio? We're a bunch of comic book artists. And I'm like, hell yeah, man. Like, let's do this. So I go there and like Dexter Vines and Georges Gianti are there. And it's like, my God, these guys are heroes. Georges was somebody, I remember when I first was learning how to use Photoshop, I was coloring Georges's pictures I found online because I was like, this guy's style is like perfect for like painting and blah, blah, blah. So of course I joined the studio. Well, these guys are going to cons. So I'm like, I'm going to tag along and God bless them, man. They're like, hey, this is John. He's a Home Depot guy. We're going to give him basically, this much room on our booth. So I'm sitting next to Georges, and I'm like feeling pretty cool because I'm now on the other side of the booth. Right. I'm feeling special. And I'm just kind of like looking around like, well, how does this, I'd gone to shows in Indiana where I'm from. Like, these are like the hotel shows, right? Which is more like vendors. Like, I think I'd met like 2 artists in my entire life at this point. So I didn't know how the game worked. So I'm looking at the game and I'm like, okay, this was, 2006, maybe 2007. Here's how everyone was making money. They're doing sketches for people and they're signing books. And that's how they were making money. And a few people out there were selling a print. They bring a print, a limited number print, and they're selling for like $50 or something like that. And I'm like, okay, this is the commerce. This is how this economy works, these shows. So again, my background's in marketing and advertising. So as I'm watching this, I'm noticing also a couple things. I did a HeroCon show with them, and it's over Father's Day weekend. And I'm like, okay, all these dudes are bringing their wives and their kids, and they are just dragging these family members along. Like, they would rather be anywhere else. And the dads are having the time of their lives, and the wives and kids are obviously loving it too, but like, they're not the one. They wouldn't have been here. So it dawns on me, I'm like, okay, these guys are they go to an artist and they're willing to drop like $100-$150 per person because they want to get all these books signed from them, and they maybe want to get a sketch from these guys, And Adam Hughes would always do the shows, and he's like only doing like 2 or 3 sketches, like sketches.
I remember like Adam Hughes would do 5 sketches a day, and if you weren't the 5th person in line, you got 0 sketches from Adam.
5
Hughes.
sketches a show, not a day.
A show. That's a show. Yeah.
But you're getting an Adam Hughes sketch, so it's like
right.
like the guy's a savant. So it dawns on me. I'm like, okay, again, what's my option C? I'm not Dexter or Georges. I'm sure as hell not Adam Hughes. So no one's going to be paying me my money's worth in sketches. And I don't have any books for people to sign. So what are my options? Well, I work in advertising, so I got connection to printers. I want to take all those prints that I have hanging up in my cubicle, and I'm going to print a shit ton of them up. And if everyone's going to sell their one print for $50, I'm going to bring a ton of prints, and I'm going to start making new prints that appeal to the girlfriends that are walking around with their husbands and the kids that are being drug along to the show too with dad. And I'm going to sell them at $10 because everyone's got $10, especially for anytime a wife or a kid stop and they're like, I really like that picture of that cool girl, like the dragon lady person or whatever. They'll drop $10 for me. Well, all of a sudden I'm going to a show, and at the time, like, I thought I was doing really good because I was going to a show as a nobody, and I was pulling in $3,000-$4,000.
Tell them the bar story. Tell them the bar story. The one convention where you're at the bar and the famous artist is bitching that he didn't make any money. Yeah,
that happened a lot, and it was one of those things again. Like, I was hearing a lot of rumbling from people on. Have you heard about this asshole sitting with Studio Revolver? Like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? And it was, these like things were getting back to me, or like, a person that had bought my print earlier would come over and just be like, God, I was over at such and such's booth, and like, they were really talking shit about you, man. Like, I don't know if you know who so-and-so is, but like, they were really ragging on. And I was like, man, like, why? Well, again, I'm pulling in a lot of scratch. So, and again, and the way this model works, I'm not taking money away from anybody. I'm just taking $10. They're coming in with $200 to spend $150 on artists and $50 on concessions for the wife and kids. I'm taking $10 out of probably the concession money because dad's going in to get these books signed and get a sketch from this artist. And I'm not touching that.
Or you're taking the $10 from the people that probably wouldn't have bought anything, but because they saw something, like you said, walking around a con, they're the wife or the kids or, they weren't going to buy anything.
Small price points for the normies? Is this a business model I could somehow manipulate into a comic book store?
It all adds up, baby.
Yep.
So it's funny enough that a year later, and I'm doing really well at all these shows, all of a sudden a lot of artists were coming over and like, what do you do? And I'm like, here's how it works. They're $10 a pop, blah, blah, blah. These are the prints. This is why I'm focusing on these certain things. Here's a business card. I literally got business cards from the printer to hand out to other artists that wanted to come talk to me and ask me questions. To be like, here's the printer. Tell him I sent you, and he's going to cut you a deal on it. And a lot of them were the same people that were talking shit about me a year ago. And it's like, it frustrates me that they had a beef with me when it's like, I want to make you money.
But John, you do know, much like Jesse and I do with retailers, it's the first caveman with fire that gets the most flack.
Right.
It just is.
It's a shame when that caveman's also waving it around, not to scare him off, but to be like, here, I'll put it on your fucking little sticks, and you can have fire too. Like, I want to share this.
Yeah.
So those are that's the kind of situation that I would see. And when it came to the exclusives, for example, and again, like talking with people, one of the things that I'm wanting to get with Marvel going is that as the prices continue to increase, because the prints, like, basically that print thing obviously became the norm. You know, you look at like the number of artists now that have, I mean, they have walls of prints. And in that meantime, so I broke into comics actually because I was out at Emerald City Con, and half the people at the show had bought a print from me. So like half the audience is walking around with a billboard of my stuff. I'd already started working in gaming because same kind of situation happened. But literally this guy, this one fan walked by the booth at Top Cow, and Philip Soblick, another one of my great homies, man, what a dude. He stops him and he's like, where in the hell did you get that picture? And he's like, oh, it's this guy over here. He's like, I see this thing everywhere. Like, everyone is walking around with this guy's art, and I don't even know who this is. And he walked over and he's like, hey, man, do you want to do Witchblade? And I was like, oh my God, this is my dream. I get to do a cup. And I'm a 90s kid, so Witchblade on top of that is like the greatest thing ever. That right there. Yeah. So they asked me to do it. But here's where, again, like having a wise business strategy and understanding how business works can pay off for you. And maybe also being an outsider. Like I'm a big advocate of when the world zigs, you should be zagging. And even though I didn't know it, that cover was emblematic of that because they asked me to do a cover. So I'm thinking it's like an advertising job. I put together 50 thumbnails. I write a paragraph at least on each cover explaining, here's the demographics I'm hoping we can hit. This is what we're trying to achieve with this one. If we're wanting to stand out on the covers, if this is going to be if it's going to be on a standard shelf, this is what I think would best be good. If this is going to be behind the POS, I think this will stand out from a slightly farther distance, blah, blah, blah. So they pick that cover up, and then I explain even more as I'm going to go into detail on how this thing's going to work. So they say, hey, man, would you be like, no artist has ever put this much thought to us, given this much thought about a cover to us. Would you be interested in writing an article for Comic Book Resources an article we'd like to publish of how to make a Witchblade cover based on this entire story? It's still probably on Comic Book Resources right now. So funny enough, I believe it was Stepan Sejic was the interior artist at that time.
Yep.
So they were at someone at Marvel was like, hey, George Balliard, head of talent, new talent at Marvel, there's this hot new artist coming in on Witchblade right now. You should really check out issue 129 to get a peek at his stuff, or 128. So he's looking through, and obviously he sees Stepan, who's, again, good God, unbelievable. But he gets to the back of the book and he's like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is pretty cool. This Witchblade, this preview for the next issue. And he looks it up and he sees the article and he reads the article about how to make a Witchblade cover. And he sends me an email and he's like, hey, buddy, you want to draw Iron Man? And I'm like, I certainly do, sir.
Yeah.
So,
and what's great about that in business, I come from corporate, is you're a classic service versus self, right? Where you're providing this low item service item. Your name really isn't the self part of it. It's just the service you're providing to people walking around the con, spending $10, and then that gets fed around the con. And so this is a tactic of business 101 brought into the comic book world that traditionally we don't have business 101 in the comic book world. Maybe in the publisher end of it, but once you get out of the publisher end of it, business 101 disappears. No one comes with game plans. They basically say, hey, I want to do it exclusive. Can J. Scott Campbell do it? Yes or no? Awesome, great. And that's the game plan.
Was this the Iron Man?
Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that is actually, I don't know if it still is, but at one point was in a gallery in Paris, France.
Wow.
For it was called like Modern Muka or something.
I mean, it looks like a Mobius. I mean, honestly.
Well, thank you very much.
John, you want to know where? Well, obviously, first saw you on the Witchblade stuff because I'm a huge Witchblade fan, and I was reading Witchblade at the time. Not a lot of people, maybe.
Oh, Ron Mars's whole run was so fucking
just
good,
amazing,
so good.
But I'm a kid that grew up in the '90s and in the beginning of the internet, and there was one web page that I remember finding you on, and it was DeviantArt, and.
I haven't been to DeviantArt in so long.
Look at this. This is where I remember finding a lot and watching a lot of your stuff is on DeviantArt. And look at this. All the old DeviantArt stuff.
Was that a wrap or was that two different cover put together?
It was a wrap. So for a while there, every Witchblade cover was a wrap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which was fun. So the whole Witchblade thing, like, again, little business thing. When we decided we were going to relaunch Witchblade, we had this idea that every cover of Witchblade, since she's a cop, was going to have a clue in each cover. And if you could decipher the clues, you could go onto the Top Cow website and unlock behind-the-scenes stuff, concept art, sketches, and things like that. So all of the covers of that run where it was widescreen, there's actually a hidden message in each one of them. And I've never revealed it, but I will tell you the one. If you can find the one, it's a picture of Sarah, and she's kissing this guy, and there's these black vines growing out of his back.
Oh, see, this is my favorite stuff. Is when you guys hide these little things in here. I remember the first time reading Wizard back in the day, and Kingdom Come had just come out, and Wizard did like a 12-page little thing of all the Easter eggs in Kingdom Come that Alex Ross had put, and I remember geeking out on that. Like these are all the cool little things that I'm so glad that you creators do. I hope more creators do this.
Oh, most artists do, and it's a lot of times it's like just alleviate the boredom of doodling nonstop.
Wow, look at that one.
That was, I think, the second cover. So that was actually a print I had done that we then turned into a cover.
Beautiful, man. Absolutely gorgeous. And so at this time, were you doing most of your art? I don't know, what do you call analog with
Traditional.
Yeah,
traditional. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still try and do as much as I can, pencil and ink. I can't afford to anymore, to be bluntly honest with you.
Yeah.
It's just too time consuming. And especially now, like once I started working in like film and other things like that, the revisions are so intensive that it's not like no one cares that it's not original art. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like to do that, but I don't really have that luxury.
Well, let's this is an important segue. So where I noticed after meeting you, you had started to build what I would then what I would now refer to as your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And for all intents and purposes, you were becoming the action figure guy. But you decided to do something that I think a lot of people would have just put it in cruise control and set back and relaxed. You said, I want to do something that I geek out on, and I want to see if my fans are along for the ride. And you came up with the negative space variant for your own personal variant.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about how you took your brand and took it from just the action figure guy to the action figure and negative space guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the goal of any artist should be is again, that's one of the first negative space covers I ever did. Again, I've been doing those since like high school.
Right.
But, it's funny. That was another one of those situations where like I pitched as a cover concept to be like, man, I'd really like to do this idea, like this negative space, a la, oh my God, Cole Phillips. This is the guy that kind of invented negative space back in like 1905.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would just kind of balk at it. And a lot of editors would just be like, we're good. Like, this doesn't really make sense. I don't think anyone's going to dig it. And I was a fan because, again, for prints, I was selling these as prints at my show. These are the kind of stuff that I was selling to the wives and the kids. I would do more elegant ladies, but with the negative space, like I had like an artistic flair. So as the action figure thing was going on, again, it's like, let's double down on myself and see where things go. And so I was like, hey man, I want to do, as my next exclusive, I want to not only do action figure stuff, but I'd also like to try and do these negative space things. And the funny thing is that like the first few of those action figure negative space covers, like they didn't do as well as I had hoped. Like they were not because they weren't the action figures, and that's what I was. The key to any artist from a business.
And Marvel wasn't giving you top tier characters to do them on.
Well,
too.
I'm going to talk about Black Panther in a second and why Brian Stelfreeze is my guardian angel. The goal should always be, when I started, right, it was like, hey, it's Spider-Man by John Tyler Christopher, if you even get to as far as knowing what my name is. With the action figures, I was able to position myself as like, cool, it's a John Tyler Christopher Spider-Man. It's a John Tyler Christopher Thanos. All of a sudden, my name was superseding, and I knew that I had done it with the fans at a certain point based on like just the reception I was receiving. But I knew I really struck it big when Marvel had developed their own personal SKUs internally to develop from just myself. Like it was literally JTC action.
Well, the
figures
retailers, we were
checks.
all seeing John Tyler Christopher action figure variant. That was a title.
Gotcha.
At FOC
Right.
or at Diamond Ordering Time.
That's a pretty cool thing to be able to have, So I decided to try the negative space thing, and it worked. We sold them, but they didn't catch on the way I had hoped to. I literally did that Spider-Man. I sold Witchblade on the Apparition version, and I sold Marvel and the Spider-Man literally at the same time. So I was like, well, fuck it. I guess I get to do two negative spaces in the same week.
Hell yeah.
So it was kind of like, please don't drop on the same week, man. Don't drop on the same day, please.
And then I think you brought up this one, right?
So again, I want to try something new. And as I'm developing this relationship with Marvel and the relationship with David Gabriel and Dan Petraglia and everybody internally there, this is again one of those keys where it's like good customer service and being a team player. You catch more flies with vinegar, with honey than vinegar. So I said, guys, I'm wanting to try this new thing called Negative Space. I'm really excited about it. What is a book that you would like for me to boost? Because if I'm going to buy it, I'm going to buy 3,000 copies of this book from you. So like whatever book it's going to be on, you're going to sell an extra 3,000 copies. So they're like, man, you know what? We'd really like you to do Black Panther. And I was like, motherfucker. How am I going to do a Black Panther? It's literally going to be eyes
Right.
and a necklace. So again, Brian Stelfreeze is the man for a great number of reasons, but one of them is he designed the vibranium glow on the Wakandan, the vibranium suit, so that I was able to put that in there because I was at a loss for what I was going to do with this cover. Because I was like, great, I get to do my first official negative space, and it's going to look like crap. It's going to be all yellow with knocked out eyes. Like, no one's going to buy this shit. So I did that, and like I said, I mean, it was good enough that I did Miss Marvel, and then I did Iron Man. But I realized it was like, I'm going to focus my efforts still on the action figure stuff. And then,
and what was great about the Miss Marvel was, and I called you up, my son was playing the Avengers game, the one where it starts with Miss Marvel. I forget what the game is called.
Just the Avengers game a couple years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And like one of the things when you complete a challenge, they give you a comic book cover in the game, and it was your Miss Marvel.
No, actually, dude, the default emblem for her was that cover.
Yeah.
Like when you played as that character, the logo that would come up by default for that character.
Which game was this? MPQ? What game was this?
No, this was this was just the Avengers game.
I want to say it was like the
Dynamics.
Xbox One Avenger launch. It had a big box set with a couple statues, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask you before you go forward. So was this a pivot, or was this something you needed a new focus on?
Okay, it was something I wanted to do professionally, like artistically. Like I have both obsessive compulsive disorder and also an attention deficit disorder.
Okay, sure.
So I'm constantly looking for what's next, but I'm also able to maintain focus. I set a record at Marvel that I don't think will ever be surpassed. I did 136 covers 1 year for Marvel. and it was all
Yeah,
just
take
action.
that, Scotty Young.
You're right.
You lazy slacker.
John, me and Dennis, we were talking about this the other night, and we were like, is there anybody that's even come close to JTC on putting out variants? Like we truly were talking about like how much you've changed in the comic book industry, not just, for one thing, but multiple things. And you have so many of the action figure variants, the negative space variants, your regular covers that you do. I mean, I don't even know if we could call them regular covers, like traditional covers.
Yeah.
126, you said, 1 year?
136.
136 in 1 year, you guys. Oh my Lord.
The following year I did 114.
How long does it take you, say now, when like that you've got everything down and you've got an idea on how to do things and whatever little quick fixes to make things faster. How long does it take you on average to do an action figure cover?
Oh, action figure covers I crank out. I mean, I was having to knock. There were times I once got a call. I think it's the Psylocke one. I got an email at 9:30 in the morning, and they said we need a Psylocke action figure cover by 3:00 in the afternoon. And
wow!
I just cranked her out.
Wow!
Like
that is amazing.
And that's not normal. And I had to cut a lot of corners, that I wouldn't have liked to. But I mean, like when you're doing 136 covers, I mean, do the math, man. That's like 2 a week, and it was just churn and burn. And you also at that time also so after the Star Wars action figures, or I'm sorry, it's funny enough, right when I did my first Marvel action figure cover, so not the Secret Wars ones, but they basically were like, hey, if you could design your own action figure line, what would it look like? And that's what the Marvel figures were. So my first one was Spider-Gwen. And as I was designing the packaging for that, I got an email from Hasbro, and that's when I started working on the Marvel Legends line. So I was doing the real Marvel toys on top of doing the cover toys. So, I mean, when I say 136, that's just the covers. I was also doing.
Well, but
I did almost every Spider-Man toy for 3 or 4 years.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, though, because we've been friends all through this time. You were also very stressed during this time.
Oh, God.
You were telling me that you were right back to kind of where you were
action figure variant,
where you were like, man, I just want to walk away. I think it was at that Star Wars Celebration 2019.
Oh, dude.
You were really frustrated with
what was causing
thing.
that? I mean, other than personal life, which, I don't expect you to get into, but like, was it professional industry stuff that was kind of weighing on you? Like, what was it? Just doing the work?
This is where, again, I don't want to get fired. The challenge I was facing, and I still face to this day, is it is a business, and this industry is got a lot of different moving factors and moving components to it. So I don't want to blame anyone, but it was like, it's like when I did the prints, right? My whole thing is like, I'm selling $10 prints. I've got now a table. I'm happy with it. I want everyone here to make money. I want all of us. I would rather, and this is going to sound crazy, and you can call me a commie or whatever you want, I don't care. But I'm like, I want everyone to make money. If that means I make a little bit less money, I want us all to make money, because the only way, on a purely capitalist way, when I talk about how the comic book industry is small and incestuous, unless everyone's making money, the train is going to stop.
Mm.
So my business philosophy is, if everyone gets a piece of the pie, we can keep people just keep ordering pie.
There's enough money out there for all of us.
Yeah. If the fans are happy because they're getting kick-ass art, and the flippers are making money because they're able to flip it and make money off of it, and we're still doing artwork for the vendors and the retailers, so they're now making money off of it, and Marvel's making money off of it, and the creators are making money off it. We're all making money off of each other. We can just keep this going for forever as long as we're all happy. It's all going to get fucked up, though, if people start getting greedy.
And that's human.
One thing that humans always fucking do is they get greedy, and that stresses me out, because it's like, here I am going at a show, and I'm like, here's my little table, and I've got 20 or 30 prints that I brought with me. And like, I'm hoping to sell to a couple different people. Now, everyone, and I'm sharing what I'm doing. I want more people to do this. Like, let's all do it. Like, man, it's awesome to walk down Artist Alley and see everyone with prints and seeing people making money and like, just like fans are happy, like life is good. But then you start getting the people that are like, we're going to build these like giant monolithic walls of prints.
Yep.
And they're trying to take more than what they're not trying to share the wealth with everybody. They're trying to hoard the wealth for themselves. And you see that a lot with the exclusive program too, like where you'll have people that are like burning books. And it's like, guys, did any of you not, maybe you didn't live in the 90s. I remember when the comic book bubble burst. And you talk about like the foil variants, for example. Like, I'm finding now that there are people making foil variants of my exclusives that I have done.
Yeah.
They're finding loopholes in other countries, and that pisses me off. Like,
Yeah, it pisses the collectors off too, John.
Yep. Yeah. I just talked to Dennis about this before the show.
We were literally, this was our
literally
pre-game.
just talking about coming from the West Coast to the East Coast, where the West Coast is kind of, it's tough to get bootleg, fake IPs, all that stuff out in the West Coast. We really take care of each other. I move over here to Florida. I walk into stores. I'm like, dude, do you have like real comics? I mean, this is ridiculous. But I know where you're going. Are you going to the shelf life responsibility of getting your product out to the shelf life for retailers while everybody else are kind of just, Jesse James in the outlaw Western world?
Let me just preface this by, this is absolutely what I've been saying throughout the entire run of this show. A lot of these are middlemen who have seen all the money people like John made, people like me and Jesse, people like the flippers, people like the publishers, and they want to get a piece of that, and they're not invested. They see what other people do. This is the Jurassic Park quote. They don't ask whether they should do it. They ask, can I do it?
Right.
And these are middlemen who need to be chased out of our temple. But go ahead, John.
No, it's just it's like what I'm seeing from people in this industry now are not in the industry. I shouldn't say that because again, like that's not true. There's
Right.
I believe there are more good people than there are bad, but like there are people that are always looking for the loopholes to cut people out.
Yep.
It's like, I don't know how to, like, you don't need me. Again, I'm a B+ player, man. There's always going to be these amazing artists that you can hire. But if you fuck everyone over, like, you can't do this without art. Now, that's going to change. There's going to be AI, and now all of a sudden you start making AI covers, and I get it. Like, that's a whole other topic of conversation. But it's the Sopranos argument, man. It's like, I don't understand why. I just want to taste. Like, you want to make a foil of one of my covers? Like, okay, cool. I'd like some money for that.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I don't think if I was a musician,
especially when you come out of the gate at 75 or 100 apiece,
or at least ask you. How many times are they asking you? They're not even asking.
Never. There's a new book, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I just found there was one. People brought up like 100 copies of this one book that I did, and I'm like, I didn't get paid from it from Marvel is the thing. Like, right? Like, I got my cover rate for the cover that they published, which cool. Like, I have a contract with Marvel. I have a relationship. They pay me X amount of dollars. I produce product for them. Cool. We're good. But now they're making versions of that in other markets. And, it's frustrating when like the art, like I've had some people come up to me when I was like, I was talking to some people, I was like, this is bullshit. And they're like, well, it's in another country. I'm like, what? They don't have the fucking internet there? Like, no, it affects me because they're cutting it. They're oversaturating my market.
Yep.
They're, shit. The whole Moon Knight debacle a couple of years ago. I did a negative space Moon Knight, and I forget who it was through, but it was like the books came in damaged. It happens all the time. Like, I get it, man. I was like, that sucks. But they weren't communicating with their fans, with their customers. And all of a sudden, I'm getting people yelling at me about where's my Moon Knight book? And I'm like, I don't know. I just did the artwork. I had customers like, I'll never buy from you again after the way you've treated us.
Yeah,
with this.
sure.
And I'm like, so wait, I just lost a customer because this person over here can't take the time to send out an email to say, sorry, your book was damaged. We're getting reprints. Oh, I'm sorry. The reprints came back damaged. We're going to get more reprinted, or we're going to refund your money, or we're going to make you right. Like, now all of a sudden they're fucking with my brand.
Mm-hmm.
And that pisses me off. Cause like I said, dude, you can hate my art. Like it's completely subjective. You can think I'm a hack. You can be like, this is just some action figure hack guy, or now he's just gone on to negative spaces and he sucks. Cool, man. God bless. But I don't want my business and my family to suffer because you can't send out an email, especially when I busted my ass to do that cover. It would have been nice if I would have sold that Moon Knight on my website and made the $50,000-$60,000 that you got paid off of my Moon Knight,
and
but
not sullying my brand at the same
it.
time.
Yep.
Damn.
Well, this is a good possible or good choice for me to bring up my brand entering with your brand. So,
and Dennis, that's why you're one of the few people that I'm like, you know, I always love working with you, man, because you always treat me right. You know, like you've always been good to me. And I'm a more personable artist than most artists. Most artists are very like kind of reserved and a little more low key. We just want to know you care and that you're going to take care of us. Like, we don't want to be sitting here being like, how am I going to pay rent next month when my artwork just appeared in a multi-billion-dollar video game? Or, you know, oh man, I watched the new Marvel TV show on Disney Plus, and they basically ripped off my art.
David Aja.
Didn't even get a penny off of it. Or if you got $100 million to pay Robert Downey Jr., I'm sure you can find some money to pay the comic book artists that you base their stuff off of. And it doesn't need to be that much. I don't know how it is, so I really shouldn't be saying that.
Well, and I said this last week or the week before. Hey, Writers Guild of America, when you take that source material, Jim Starlin and George Perez Infinity Gauntlet saga, how about you invite those two to come into the Writers Guild so they can share some of that sweet Writers Guild royalties? I mean, you're adapting
and everything else.
Yeah,
yep,
exactly. So this is another first for you because Marvel did their first shared retailer exclusive off of your art, and it was actually my idea. I don't know if you ever knew that. So this is the very first checklist, and they opened this up to any retailer who wanted to participate. And I think there was 4 or 5 that chose it, John?
Yeah, I don't think it was much.
Yeah, so John, they offered this out, and only 5 retailers took advantage of it, and they put your logo on the action figure checklist. I forget what the coming soon was. What was the coming soon?
Boba Fett.
No, Boba Fett's on here.
Oh, okay.
The coming soon was just whoever was next.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so we did this one for Vader Down, and I said, hey guys, I want to do one, and I'd already talked to you, and you had said, dude, this is a great idea, because since I didn't get to do mine, I wanted to do something similar, but for my store, and that's when we came up with the, can you see it there? Yeah. This was the mail away exclusive. This is basically the early bird set.
Yep.
And at the time, we couldn't figure out how to do more than 3. But this was pretty damn good. So this kind of was our first variant together exclusively, and that was on Vader Down as well. So these two I was offering right off the bat, and I think I had you come in later that month and do an in-store with me.
Oh, yeah.
A horrible winter. You brought your kids up, and they swam with my kids at the hotel.
I believe they played a lot of Pokemon Go that weekend.
They did. And then I think 3PO was second.
These were so smart. It was so smart back to do the early bird certificate.
And
sets.
but the best part is
yes,
part of the branding process was, oh, hey, look, come to my store.
Yep.
That's the return address on the box.
Yep.
And John put so many fucking Easter eggs into these. John, actually, I don't think we've ever discussed this.
I have to pull them up. Like, I mean, obviously, like the stamp is from the different places of Star Wars. The prices and dates and everything are like first appearances of the character, when the character was designed. Yavin, when it would have occurred in the universe. Like, there's not a single random thing put on there.
That's awesome.
And then when I moved locations. Look at this fucking brilliant.
This is my favorite one. Yep.
Kids, if you've ever read The Mail and you had to move, they would put this little yellow sticker on there to your new address, and that was our new address when we moved from Lincoln Park down to Monroe. I just love this. We did these for Celebration. We did a couple of these for Celebration. Here's the Cantina with the Jabba stamp.
Yep. Show us the characters, dude.
Oh, well, that's the Cantina with Blue Snaggletooth.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, is that the first Blue Snaggletooth, by the way, John?
Or
did you do it before?
I did one for my own exclusive, and I think it might have been right around the same time.
Yeah, I think we did these in tandem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, also, just as a little treat for tonight, Brian, we're going to give away a full set of the Wonderworld JTC exclusives.
Yes.
For free tonight.
So what we're going to do
this out first thing tomorrow.
Yeah, what we're going to do, you guys, if you want to enter to get put in to win those great covers, those great comics, all you have to do is comment. I know there's a lot of people watching live right now. Just comment after the show is over in the comment section. Just let us know what you thought of the show, and then next week we'll pick a random winner to send those out to. So
and give us a thumbs up too.
Yeah, you guys got to hit thumbs up too, please.
Thumbs up, subscribe.
Amen.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's it.
So we talk about brands and Jesse. Jesse's done a lot of variants with a lot of people. I've done a lot of variants with a lot of people. But you're one of those brands that when I met you and when I saw that we had almost a similar, philosophy about how to do this and how to make it, available, keep it, accessible to the customer, etc. I said, I have not a single problem in the world linking my brand with the John Tyler Christopher brand. And that's why I've done, I think, now 9. Is that where I'm at?
Oh, we've done a lot together, man.
So a lot of people are asking in the chat, can they comment on the live chat? Don't comment on the live chat, you guys. What you want to comment on is after the show is done, comment in this section right here. Okay, so you can see how people commented. That way, it'll give me I can randomly pick one of you guys in the comment section, and we also give the people that are catching the replay the ability to enter. So comment in this area after the show. You guys know I love you guys who watch us live. We always like to give away giveaways to you guys, but tonight we're going to open it up to everybody just because it's such a cool gift to give away. So that's the way to do it.
No, but it's been a great success for me. And I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you working with me for all these years.
Well, dude, thank you. And like I said, I appreciate working with you, man. It's always, every time we see each other, even if it's been a year, like it's just like nothing ever. Just right back.
It's been
the old Brian.
And I've spent my birthday with you for the last 2 years as well.
Exactly. Still waiting for you to come to Lafayette, dude. Kick it in the hot tub.
Where do you do a lot of cons still?
No, I don't. A, I'm too busy, and B, I am terrified of flying, so it really kind of limits.
But I am going to work on you for the next year to go to Japan.
Don't know if there's enough drugs in the world, Dennis.
Yeah, they have to put them on a boat. 3 weeks to get there.
There we go. Yeah, you know what? I can do that.
Yeah,
be king of the world for a while. But no, I love doing shows. I'm trying to do more of them just because, like, it's tough because I actually really enjoy shows. As an artist, we do this all day.
Yeah.
So I for one, at least, like, I legitimately enjoy talking to people. I enjoy like meeting people. You don't know if people are digging what you're doing, first of all, and second of all, like, you know, I love the feedback, and I just love to like put a face to the names,
Yes.
you know, of the people that come.
So have you gravitated at all to any type of live streaming socially, or is that part of your plan as well?
It's something I'd like to do more of. I just, like I said, time is my biggest commodity.
Well, I will tell the audience and you, Jesse, we were talking about it in November of 2022 when a certain online selling platform crashed and burned for me, and the world was deprived of me coming down to Lafayette and doing a live stream from John's house.
No, like I used to do a podcast with some buddies of mine back in the day, and it was literally a podcast about nothing, like
Right,
it wasn't
sure.
like comics or anything like that. Like I enjoy, as you can tell by the amount of shit that is thrown out of my mouth, this sitting here, you know, it's like,
Right.
I'm not one for not talking. I just, like I said, for me, it's a time. It's a matter of, I've got to ask myself, what are my deadlines? And can I predict my deadlines that far in advance that I can commit to doing a show? And like, I'll never forget one of the worst. It was like one of the greatest and one of the worst weekends of my life. I was nominated for a Harvey Award, and for my work on Witchblade. And so that weekend, I had a buddy of mine come with me, and since I don't fly, we drove from Lafayette, Indiana, all the way to Baltimore. The hotel, we missed our hotel because I had to stay late the night before to work on a deadline that I didn't finish before I drove to Baltimore. We got into Baltimore at like 7:30 in the morning, slept in the car for a couple hours, woke up, got my booth, did a show for that day, went to the Harvey Awards. After the Harvey Awards were over, got back in my car, drove straight through back to Lafayette, Indiana, dropped him off, went home, and ended up pulling 2 all-nighters in a row to finish up my deadline.
Yep.
So I worked for 4 days straight without sleep. And it's like, I vowed I would never put myself through that again. You know, kind of a thing. Because like, at the end of the day, it's not fair to the people I'm going to meet if I'm distracted because I have to work. That's one of the reasons I never understood like the whole sketch game at cons for a lot of people. It's like, it always broke my heart that all these artists were like, they would work all night on sketches. Like, these guys are killing themselves to do sketches, do shows. And when you see the finished product, you understand why. Like, it's a work of art, man. It's beautiful. But I was just like, man, I work. I don't sleep enough as is. Like, if I go to a show, I'm going to sleep. And also, when I get home, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I can't sleep again, because now if I miss a deadline, like, no one's going to care because I'm not making work anymore, you know?
Sure.
Well,
and I think the biggest thing at conventions is, you know, you have the social meetings afterwards where everything happens. I mean, I can tell you, after going, you know, this is my 39th year going to San Diego Con, I don't even care about the con. Like, what time does dinner start?
When
That's
do I
all
get to
wanna
hang out
know.
with my buddies?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, because you get to hang out with everybody. And so when you start missing that and you're not sleeping and you're missing deadlines, that makes it a tough road, especially for the younger guys who might not even understand that yet. So yeah, I definitely get what you're talking about.
You had a huge sale tonight. For those of you guys that don't know,
that's the private sale no one's supposed to know about.
Well, listen, we talked about it yesterday. We talked about it the day before on the channel. So all these guys definitely know about it. So hopefully you guys,
these two right here?
That is what I'm talking about. Let's take a look at those beautiful books. Oh wait, nope, there we go.
You had to put it right over your face.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That is gorgeous. The Han Solo one is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I I want to use it in all my thumbnails because it looks so good on thumbnails. So I might have to start hiding JTC images in the behind of my thumbnails.
So,
because
John, in the chat, Jordan is asking a question that I wanted to hit on tonight.
well, that's where I'm going.
That's
where I'm going with this, Dennis. So I'm glad these minds think alike. So when we go to this webpage, there is something that pops out to me immediately that is very noticeable, and that is one of the best things about your brand, and that is your signature logo, whatever you want to call this, right here.
Yeah, my little emblem.
And Jordan in the chat says, he says, JTC's signature on his negative space covers has me pulling out the magnifying glass to find them.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's talking about my signature, not my emblem.
You got it.
Yes. Okay. The signature.
So you gotta go back. We're winding it back again. Tell them about the rock art poster that you had signed.
So it's a convergence of multiple factors. So I'll tell. There's a couple stories involved in here. Are we on a time limit, guys?
No time limit.
Give a shit. Like, okay,
Nope.
cool. So like I said, I can ramble. So like I said, I used to go to like little shows, like the little hotel shows. I remember I went to a show up north from here in Indiana, and it was going to have Gene Ha was going to be there, which, I mean, Gene effing Ha at the time, I think he just finished up the Further Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, the Scanny Sun offshoot book. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to meet Gene Ha. This is going to be so cool. And so I met Gene. I was able to talk to him, and he was just amazing. But there was also this other guy there who had designed some Star Wars action figure stuff, and he's the guy that did the cover for Michael Jackson's Dangerous, which was like, holy crap, like this guy's amazing. And he had he was one of the people, he was selling a $50 print. And I was like, I'm buying this print because more than anything, as a young artist, right? Like, you emulate other artists. Like, that's what you do. That's how you get better. That's how you learn. I mean, throughout high school, I was a Jim Lee clone because all I wanted to do was be Jim Lee. So I bought this poster because of this beautiful head in the corner that I was like, I'm going to redraw this head like 5,000 times. And dude signed right over the head in a giant black. It wasn't even a Sharpie. It was like a freaking paintbrush you paint your wall with. And he ruined it. And I'm like, again, I'm like 16 at the time, so I'm not going to say anything. But I was like a young Bruce Wayne, and I made a vow to like never ruin another piece of artwork again, you know, like, and so yeah. So when I actually, one of the shows I was sitting at with Georges, and somebody bought one of my prints when I just started doing this. It was one of the first people to ever ask, can I get a signature? And I was like, yeah, man, that's cool. Like, sure. So I get it and I sign my name, and I sign it small. But Georges, after the guy leaves, Georges leans over, because it's not like I had a line or anything. Georges leans over and he's like, dude, is that how you sign checks? And I'm like, yeah, it's your signature, right? He's like, dude, that guy can now forge your signature, like, dummy. And it's like, the things they never teach in high school, right? Like, your autograph and your signature are two different things. So somebody came up next, and it's not like I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't that kid in high school that was like practicing my autograph for when I make it to the major leagues. Like, I was like, holy shit, somebody wants my autograph.
Right.
I sign my name. So I just wrote my name as tiny as possible. And that's how I write really small to begin with. So it just seemed like second nature.
I love it. And we talk about this, you know, not only with your signature, but also your logo. You put your logo in there, and it's tiny too. And we noticed that, and totally noticed that. We love that you guys do this, because I feel like, and I'm an outlier, I think, but there's a lot of us out there that are collectors of signed, you know, memorabilia, comics, cards, whatever. When a comic book is signed and it's just one signature and it's massive and it just takes away from the art, kind of like someone, and I hate to say it, you know, loves, Stan Lee is the GOAT, but there's some Stan Lee signatures that ruin books, in my opinion, because they're so huge, out of the way, taking away from the art, and this is awesome. This is so good. You do this. I know Jeff DeCall does this. There's a couple other guys that do these really small signatures and put their logos in there because you want them to see that. You don't want it to take away from the art.
The art is my signature, right? Like that me writing my name is just proof you met me, kind of the finger I touched the book. No, I actually I signed with Stan once, and it was one of those things where I was actually second in line, so Stan would sign the books so people could talk to Stan,
Right.
and then they could get me to sign it and get the hell out because it's Stan Lee.
Yeah.
And dude, the number of times I was like, this son of a bitch signed right over my Spider-Man face, and I was like, I was thinking that, and then I was like, oh wait, it's Stan Lee. He can sign wherever the fuck he wants.
Sure. Well, I always tell this story that, I started working in a comic book store in 1982. Jack Kirby was there that week. Obviously, back then it was blasphemy to sign on the cover. You never sign on the cover. And that's why I tell people when you buy old collections, especially in the Kirby era, go to the first page, look under the Adisha. That's where he usually signs. And until really 92, when people really started signing covers, I was really against.
I'll tell you when I think it started, when Dynamic Forces and Nick Barucci started doing all those QVC shows.
Yeah, but that was a certificate signature. I'm just talking about going to a convention and the guy's right in front of you and he signs the cover, and it was Will Spataccio. I actually threw the comic book back at him, told me it would be a comic book, right? I'm like, what are you doing? You just destroyed my... That's how we do it. We don't want to open up the pages and all that. So now, we've evolved to this, okay, it's okay to sign the cover, but now it's like, well, don't F up the cover. How do you make this cover a branded signature cover, which is very, interesting now, right? So it's very signatures and autographs are very, very important on a cover, and I think it also tells a story. So
it's 100%. It's part of that brand. Like everything you do, you should think it out. I did. It was one of the biggest honors of my career. NYCC years ago. It was like 50 for 50, and they basically had 50 Marvel creators to celebrate Marvel's 50th anniversary, and they asked me to be a part of it, and I was just like floored. So I'm sitting there. I was lucky enough I was able to sit next to Adi Granov, which is
sure.
God, he's so amazing. So everyone was allowed to bring in one item and get all 50 creators to sign their one item. So, you kind of started off at different tables and you just kind of go to each different table to get all the things signed. And one of the last people was at our table. So people are kind of congregating around as the thing's winding up, and we're just, the shit shooting is beginning. And Joe Quesada, Kevin Smith, and Stan all made a comment. They're like, oh, you're that asshole that signs so small. Like... We were all sitting over at the table being like, I can't even read this. Like, who is this?
Yeah.
It's like that's not my name. My signature literally got me a conversation with Kevin Smith, Stan Lee, and Joe Quesada all at once. Like, awesome,
So, I want to ask this because it's very interesting. Tell us about just forget about comics for a second. Tell us your love for Star Wars, how it started, and kind of go from there.
I don't remember a life without Star Wars. Like, does that make sense? Like,
yes,
I can barely remember it, and it was Adventure People the year or two before Star Wars.
I don't remember a world without Star Wars. The first movie I remember seeing in the theaters was Return of the Jedi.
Okay,
me too. Same story.
Yeah, I mean, dude, we owned when my parents got a Betamax. It was the first movies we bought. The original trilogy, and I don't even think I can watch the scene with the Rancor anymore. I think I wore it out because I would just watch the Rancor and rewind, watch the Rancor and rewind. I mean, dude, I owned all the toys. I owned the Play-Doh set with the little blue clamps that you could make your Play-Doh men out of. Star Wars has just always been my love.
I've got a fun story I don't think I've ever told anywhere. So I knew that there was a thing called Star Wars. I was 5 years old in 1977, May of 1977. I knew there was a thing called Star Wars. All the kids were talking about it. It was a PG movie. My parents would not take me to a PG movie. I could only go to G movies. 1978 rolls around. My grandparents take me to Kmart in summer of 78 because my grandpa needed to pick up some stuff because he was going to work in the yard. And there's this big bin of action figures right walking up to the checkout. And my grandma goes, I go, oh, Star Wars. I've heard of this. She goes, oh, well, they were $1.97 a piece. Pick out 3 of them, Denny. And I picked out Chewbacca, Han Solo, and R2-D2. No idea what a Star Wars was, but for the next several weeks, I played with R2, Han, and Chewie. I had my own world. I had my own universe. And it wasn't until 79 when they brought Star Wars back to the theaters.
Right, sure.
With a special tag of a preview of Empire Strikes Back that I actually got to see the movie. But this is the part that I've never told anyone about. I honestly thought R2-D2 was a cannon that everybody could use. And I would just bend it up because it looked like,
right,
it was like a big gunshot cannon. Yeah. And man, I'll tell you what, Han Solo and Chewbacca could knock over my Micronauts with their R2 cannon.
Right.
And yeah.
So
oh my gosh.
If
somebody does not put that in the story, I'm gonna be really pissed.
And what's crazy? So you saw 6. So then you went back. Did you go back to 4 and then 5 because you're watching 6 as the tail end, right?
What?
Because you had Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back.
Jedi was his first movie. He's asking
Right.
how long before you went back.
Yeah.
I had seen them, I'm sure, on television.
Okay.
But like I went with my dad to go see Return of the Jedi, which meant a lot to me also. Sure. That's probably another reason why it sticks out so well in my head. But I mean, I remember like I don't remember not knowing Star Wars. Like it's just one of those things. It's always been, my cousin was into it, so we were collected the figures. I don't remember seeing the movies for the first time other than Jedi.
Yeah.
They were just there. They were just
my cousins, I lived in Nevada at the time, and my cousins, my mom would go over to her best friend's house. I call them my cousins, it's not blood, but, and my mom's best friend had a daughter that was my age and an older son that was like, I think like 4 years older than me. And I was really young, and I remember going over there, and I hated going over there because I used to have to play with girl toys all the time because she was a girl, and I was like, I don't want to play with girl toys, And I remember my mom's best friend, calling her son down and going, "Hey, Mike, let Bryan see your action figures," and he pulled out the Darth Vader for the first time, and opened it up, and they were all in there, and they were all perfect, and I remember thinking that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life, man. It was like game changer, and never been the same until they ruined it for me a few years ago.
So but again, to say Star Wars has always been in your life, and then you're doing Star Wars comics. Was there what was that connection when that happened?
Oh, like they said, that's why it was like, I'm doing this, even though I literally lied to my wife 24 hours ago, telling her I wasn't going to take on any more work. Like, right. I'm taking this cover.
Yeah,
I'm doing these. It was funny though, because I was actually a Lucasfilm artist already, because I did one of my first professional works. I started one of my first. When I say art, I mean cool art, was I worked for White Wolf Games on Vampire the Masquerade. And I did a couple pieces of art for them. And I actually became a Lucasfilm art and designed Star Wars miniatures back in 2003 or something like that. No, it was later than that. But anyways, so I was already a Star Wars artist, but it was, I designed, it was generic trooper or whatever, it was still amazing. Dude, I still geek out over it. Like, I mean, again, I could be wrong here, but I think I've done more Star Wars covers than anyone ever. Like, I mean, because I've done one for every book minus a couple, you know.
Yeah.
Even more than Dave Dorman.
Which is amazing. That's pretty amazing to say.
Yeah.
Well, you brought it up.
and
You
I mean-
said the magic word, which was my first published work, and that's something that we're big on over here. Is anytime I have a new creator on the channel that we haven't asked, I want to dig into their first published work, and the reason why is because that's one of the things I love collecting. I love finding those cool things where, like, Frank Miller was a kid and he wrote in a letter to Amazing Spider-Man 159, or, you know, those type of cool things. And I have a list, and everybody knows about this. If there's anybody that's watching right now, you can find a link to this list in every description of every show we do over here. And if you guys want to go check it out, you can also comment and add things to it. It's called the Beyond Wednesdays Comic Creator First list. And we have you on here, and I have left first work open. Now, I know that the Witchblade 129, the cover, was your first work in comics. Well, 128, I guess, is when it first showed up because they previewed it, right? Was there ever anything in comic books before that, you know, maybe was something that you had sent in, a sketch, or you just happened to be in, that we collectors can chase?
Oh my gosh, no, there's nothing that is publicly available. Let's put it that way.
Well, put down White Wolf Games, and we'll have to fill in the rest because it was a monthly magazine. So we'll have to track down the monthly magazine of White Wolf that your character designs were in.
Yeah, I'll have to you know, one of the things that I've considered doing to be more engaging with people on social media is going back in, like, the Wayback Machine and posting, like, that early work. Like, not that I ever had an ego about it, but, like, it sucks by my standards today, but it's like, I don't think anyone's not going to buy my shit if I.
Yeah, the chat is saying we're looking for that Home Depot flyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if there's ever anything that you think of that you think would be a cool thing that people could go search for, you know, when we had Rob Liefeld on here, one of the things that we brought up was the Boris the Bear issue. When he was working in the comic book store, he sent in a sketch to Boris the Bear, and they didn't even tell him that they were going to publish it. And when he was putting that book on the shelf that week, somebody told him, "Hey, your sketch is in the back of Boris the Bear." Like, those are the cool stories we love to hear. So if you ever find anything out, let us know. We would love to hear about it and add it to our list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think, like, I think the first TV show I ever worked on was called, oh my God. Oh, I'll have to figure that out. I used to do advertisements for, like, Dairy Queen, and
Yeah.
That's
Move
like
over Home Depot.
there was this terrible home improvement show that I worked on that I literally would have to design the blueprints in the TV show that would zoom in on the different rooms that they were renovating and stuff. Sell This House was the name of the show.
Wow.
Like an old HGTV series.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, since you talked about doing the most Star Wars covers, and Brian can cover me on this, just so you know, I hold the record, and it's still being calculated by Guinness Book of World Records. I have played Star Wars 28,637 times in the store since 2010. So yeah, big Star Wars fan. So
Awesome.
we're always trying to, you know, do something in Star Wars.
Is it still on VHS, by the way, Jesse?
Still on VHS.
Yeah.
We've only gone through 3 VHS tapes, and it's fun because it's playing in the background, and I'm just doing work in the store, and I can hear it and visually know what is going on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well,
It's just amazing.
along with that, you know, so I got into this business that I'm currently in because when I went to college, my parents called me and said, "Hey, we're selling the house. Get all your crap out of the basement." And I took my shoebox full of Star Wars figures to a local antique store, and the guy gave me $110 in 1991 for it.
Yeah,
I'm like,
wow.
Yeah.
and there were, I mean, of course, there was a Han Solo and Carbonite, Power of the Force, Luke Skywalker and Stormtrooper, a couple Ewok, Power of the Forces. So he got me good. And as I started researching it, and this is pre-eBay and this is pre-internet, guys, I'm like, oh wow, there's like a whole separate world. There's a toy show circuit. There's a flea market circuit. And I started talking to my buddies when they came home for Thanksgiving, and I'm like, hey, you still got all those toys in the basement that we used to chill out and play with? He goes, yeah, my mom's telling me get all that crap out of the basement because she wants to turn my room into a rumpus room, you know, or a sewing room or whatever. I'm like, hey, I'll buy it. And I started flipping that until 2000 when I was doing a comic book show. Now, I had a couple of moments in there where this buddy said, hey, come over and hang out. And I'm drinking beer with Jeremy Bullock and buying shots for Peter Mayhew. And, you know, that was around 96, 97. But in 2000, I got to hang out with Admiral Mahdi and Jerome Blake, Richard Parmentier and Jerome Blake at a convention. And Admiral Mahdi's action figure had just come out. And he's like, man, I get like $40 to autograph one of those at my booth. And I'm like, dude, we get those on the shelf for $5. He goes, well, I'll pay $10 a piece. And I'm like, okay. So I call him up. He gives me his phone number while he was in the US. And I call him up and I'm like, yeah, how many do you want? My buddy's got 100 of them. He's 100? Are you kidding me? This is one of the hottest figures. I go, yeah, dude, if you want, I mean, just let me know how many you want. He goes, well, I'm doing a show down in Atlanta called Dragon Con. Can you bring like 40 of them down there? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I tell my buddy, send them to me. And so I drive him down there and he's like, I'll pay for, I got a hotel room for you. You come down and just hang out with me and you bring those figures. And like I said, he was getting $40 a piece. So that's like an extra $1,600 for him. And he just had the promoter tack on an extra, room for him. And we're getting drunk one night. And I'm literally drinking with Kenny Baker, Jerome again. Chase Masterson stole all of our hotel room keys from Deep Space Nine. You know, we're hanging out with Morn from Deep Space Nine.
Nice.
And I'm like, who the fuck am I? I'm okay. I sell toys. How am I in this group? And we're drunk and we're sitting on that back porch of the Hyatt there. Bars closed and Richard's like, Dennis, you should be my agent. And I'm like, I don't know anything about being an agent. I'm a toy dealer. That's what I do. He's like, you sell my toy, right? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, all you got to do is sell me. And much like you were saying earlier, it was that challenge. You know, I didn't realize I was bored. I'd been on the front page of the Wall Street Journal for selling toys. I had done all these TV shows, you know, chasing toys around the country. And this was a challenge that put me full circle in the Star Wars realm. And before you know it, I had 19 clients. They were calling me the Jerry Maguire of Star Wars. Everyone knew who I was. You know, Darth Vader knew who I was. Boba Fett knew who I was. I'm talking to Mark Hamill's wife, trying to get him to come out on the circuit, and now he's doing autograph shows. You know, it's one of those things that you just don't realize how overwhelming it is. That 5-year-old or 7-year-old Dennis playing with an R2-D2 as a cannon is now all of a sudden having R2-D2 drunk at dinner and having to get him back to his hotel room so he can sign autographs in the morning so you can get your 10%.
Nostalgia. I'm just really glad you didn't try and like put him on his hands and lift up his legs. And
Yeah.
That could be a disaster.
I guess the question is you're evolutionist in cover art. So you go from action figure covers, you go to negative space. When is that need to go on to that next, or have you already started to go on to that next kind of theme genre?
Well, let me pause. Brian, pull up that 3 3/4 inch Marvel line, because I think, am I wrong, John? This is the next evolution.
Well, it was one. I mean, there's
one of them. Yeah.
So one of the beautiful things of becoming established, we talked earlier about like trying to develop going from a Spider-Man by John Tyler Christopher to John Tyler Christopher Spider-Man, is that you have people that are hiring you for me, right? It's not like Marvel's like, hey, we just need a cover for this. You're in our Rolodex, draw us something. They're contacting me because they want my work, or, you know, when I do work in a game or movie or whatever, like they know what they're getting themselves into. And the moment that happened for me was the moment I'm like, cool, that old self is done. Like I always will have that, because I can always go to that. If that's what they want, if they're like, we want it to look like this, awesome, it's going to happen. But like when we got the 3 3/4 inch line set up, originally I was like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to even say this, but I don't think anyone cares. Originally I was going full Kirby on it, because I wanted to go like hyper, like, you know, the big thick lines and like the really dynamic poses. And then when we more settled on the, like, it's less 70s and more 80s style, like late 70s, like it made sense, right? Because I was thinking I wanted to do Kirby. What can I say? I'm a comic.
Sure.
But that's when it went more into that, like Neil Adams, John Byrne. Like I really wanted to develop that style and that technique. To like do that. So like I was able to study that and try and reinterpret that. I've done a lot of work in like 90s style lately. That's like I basically try to draw like I drew in high school. So there's like it's kind of very Jim Lee-ish with a lot of hatching and stuff. The Giant Man action figure piece that I just did for HasLab, it's like I painted that. Like it was digitally painted, but like that wasn't coloring. That was me literally just like, pick this color, slap it there. Pick this color, slap it there. And wanting to evolve. So I've been evolving since even the moment negative space became a thing was the moment I'm like, cool, I'm going to run with this because I love it. And it is like the action figures, I'm like a proud uncle to, and will always be a proud uncle. But like that is Star Wars, that is paying respect to Kenner. And, you know, again, as I mentioned, my buddy George Balliard at Marvel brought me in on that. And that was why I was very adamant that, like, I will never do another action figure cover for anyone else. DC, I'm not going to do it for DC. I'm not going to do it for Image. Won't do it for anybody.
Right.
Negative space are mine. Like
loyalty is important. Yeah.
I brought that to Marvel. Like, you know, those are mine. So the moment when I was like, this is starting to take off was the moment I was like, man, what's next? Like, you know, and it's just experimenting with it. Like the Han and the Boba Fett aren't negative space covers. They're more like a negative wash.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and is it going to be paint? I'm playing with certain things. Like, I don't want to, let me put it this way. And this is like going to be a bold statement. And so I don't want to discuss it too much in case I fall on my face and everyone's like, I was a liar. I think I might have developed something I've never seen anyone do artistically.
And you did kind of whisper something to me, and I won't tell anyone, but if you pull it off, it's going to be brilliant.
So it's pretty time intensive, but it's something, like I said, that's like, it's unique. And I'm always looking for, like, I respect the present and I respect the past, but I'm always looking for the future. That's where like that OCD, like I can do it for 36 of the same covers, but I'm also always like, squirrel, what's next?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's one of those, like, the businessman in me, I'm fascinated by art, the business of art and what is cool. And, you know, one of the things, and I'm not going to speak for anybody else other than myself, but it's like, I'm getting old, right? And it's really fascinating to me, this whole thing of, I remember going into Artist Alley and seeing this crop of people. And it's like, I remember hearing the older guys talking about, like, you know, these young whippersnappers don't know what, like, this isn't really good art. They don't understand how shadows really work with like solid blacks, because they're like using this Photoshop thing. And I remember one of the few shows I went to recently, I went to like C2E2 a couple of years ago, and I went down Artist Alley, and it's like, man, if you are an established artist, like if you are somebody who is like in the industry, you need to do yourself a favor and go to Artist Alley, because it's like, that's the future, man.
Sure.
Like, we're the ones stuck in like the guest lists and the guest alleyways. And man, I went down Artist Alley and it was just like, I don't understand any of this. And I love it. Like, I want to make sure I'm prefacing this by saying this is said with the utmost respect. I do not get Peach Momoko. I don't understand her work. I don't.
Right.
She's fucking incredible.
But guess what? But here's the thing, and I'll just pause you for a second. My kids love her.
Yes. Hey, she's the hottest cover, or at least last year she was the hottest cover artist in all comics.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not professionally, it's not my job to understand her. It's my job to understand why other people dig her.
Right. And that, I was just going to say, to go back to when you were given the Black Panther project and you said, wow, how am I really going to do this? Because you have creative value now, does the item or the title, are you then think about it before you do it?
Well, I'm always thinking, yeah. Like I still approach it like it's a business.
Okay.
I find it disrespectful for me to say I am a comic book artist because that is disrespectful to all the incredible artists that actually make comic books. I am an advertiser to sell their product.
Okay.
Like, I don't mean one day I would love to consider myself a comic book artist, but I am not there. I'm a cover artist, and a cover artist's job is to sell the product, which is the comic book. So
speaking of that, there's a question that I want to there's a couple questions that I want to ask, and this is a perfect, as we call them, segues into that. You said that you're a cover artist, and Three Rivers Comics asks a question for JTC at some point. Why has Marvel moved away from the villain versus hero covers where the action was based on the story, i.e. the Silver and Bronze Age, to the modern like hero posing covers, or even having covers where it doesn't even have the story involved? And you kind of hit on that earlier, how to make a Witchblade cover kind of hits on that too. Why has the change happened so much where you aren't seeing the cover isn't telling about the story inside as much anymore? I
mean, I can't speak 100% to it other than outside of like my perspective. So yep. I don't want to,
right, sure.
Which unfortunately, I mean, it has been years since I have been a regular cover artist because I think with they just want me on the variants. That's what they want me. That's what they want me to do. I know when I was doing regular covers, one of the concerns or issues we faced was they needed the covers out for solicitation so far in advance that there was a lot of questions as to what exactly is going to go on with that issue. Secondly, they're asking me to make the cover again, not the comic book artist that's doing the interiors. So I'm going to have a whole different perspective of if that maybe certain characters hadn't been designed yet. Maybe the story changes. I respect where that question is coming from because it's something that I miss those old kick-ass, will the sensational Spider-Man, escape the seductive clutches of Black Cat? That is so cool. But now I think it's more just like we need this cover done now so we can solicit it 6 months in advance. And
variants have really just become such a big part of the industry.
Well, can I ask a question and then you just give us your artistic opinion? Is it harder for a cover artist to create, let's just say, the cover for X-Men 133, Wolverine versus the Hellfire Guards, or Wolverine just standing on a cover showing us his claws?
Oh, it would be more time consuming for me.
Time consuming
to do the just Wolverine to have Wolverine fighting all
right. And my theory is that the closer we get to these fast deadlines, we have to get this, we have to have this covered by FOC, or we have to have this covered by Diamond pre-order time. We don't have time to wait for John Byrne to give us the greatest cover he's ever had. We only have just enough time to have somebody draw a picture of Wolverine with his claws, and stylistically though, that is also really important and is a key thing, is that as
as the art has evolved, right? Like you look at somebody like Art Germ or these other like painters, like, dude, how many books was Kirby doing back in the day?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
jeez, yeah.
Yeah.
He did an entire book in a weekend.
Yeah. And that style, having worked in their style, right, doing the John Byrne stuff and stuff, like it is flat out. It's not, I'm not going to say it's an easier, but it's certainly a more time efficient style and technique. You know, you're not having to, you can hide certain things in shadows. You can simplify certain musculatures that you might not do in a painting and not worry about, well, where exactly is this highlight going to go and how's it going to gradiate if you're doing multiple color. Like, it's just very much like, this is red, highlight, done. So I think that also might play a part in the production of comics has changed so dramatically now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
And
I was talking to a publisher, a person that's a publisher that works with a real big one of the artists out there that's like super like realistic, and they say that this artist takes up to 80 hours to make a cover.
I can believe that, yeah.
And that's exactly what you're saying. And you kind of said it earlier with your new thing that you get coming, that it's very the time is the important thing. And so I understand like the difference. But here's the interesting thing. With all the photorealistic artists that are out there right now, I love the guys, and I think that you're one of them. I love the guys that you can see their style. You know it's their art. There's something about your art that when I see it, I know it's JTC. When I see Adam Hughes, I know it's Adam Hughes. When I see, I love that, and it doesn't. I like the to be able to do that, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. And I think that goes back to that philosophy I was talking about earlier of like, when the world zigs, I like to zag. I think everything works in like, everything is a counterpoint to something else, right? Like you look at anything in life, right? In any economy, in any business, as things got super hyper realistic, like it wasn't just Art Germ that was doing that style. All of a sudden there's a whole slew of like, there's a million different Art Germ people. Well, who is as opposite of Art Germ as humanly possible? Peach Momoko, right? It's like this like beautifully, it's like simple and it's like super elegant and fine, but it's also like
watercolor, like
it is super like it's very organic and real. It's my mentor, a gentleman by the name of Bruce Sharp, who was the one of the head designers for the Xbox, told me once, he's like, throughout human history, artists have attempted to create a perfect circle. And I believe that is actually how as story goes, that's how the Sistine Chapel was he drew a perfect circle. Well, along come computers, and it's like anybody can make a perfect circle now.
Yep.
Like it's super easy. How do you add imperfections? Because that's what the human eye acknowledges.
That uncanny valley, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that you have those other artists.
Fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like a whole other conversation there, buddy.
Well, we've had you here for 2 hours, and
holy shit!
Yeah.
And that's I told you, man. We just start talking.
And
this is the typical Dennis and JTC run into each other at the con right here.
Well, I think we'd just be ordering another round of drinks at this point. Get started.
Exactly.
I want to ask you this before we let you go, because it's one of the main questions that we ask everybody on here. And other than a place that sells comic books, what is a comic book store to you?
It's changed so much in the sense that a comic book store to me growing up was the place that I could go and meet like-minded individuals and have a conversation about my passion. And it wasn't just comics. It was Star Wars. It was, certain toys or certain TV shows. I find that community still exists on the internet and still exists at the I actually have gotten into card game called Marvel Champions.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally just started going back to my old high school comic book store because I found 4 dudes that play Marvel Champions. And once every week or every couple weeks, I go to my old comic book store and we play Marvel Champions together.
Right.
That's what a comic book store is to me.
And did you hear what he said? Here's the key word. He said, my comic book store. That's the key word for our culture and tradition, that there is not this separation of the, oh, I went to the comic book store, owner's store. No, I went to my store.
Yeah.
So very good.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's one more question that I like to throw on. What is the first comic book you remember holding in your hand?
I don't know if I'm going to get like ostracized from comics for this, but it was Death of Superman. I was in middle school. I was asked to be the guy that filled the vending machines. Me and a buddy, and we filled the vending machines. And he was talking about how Superman died, and I'm like, "Oh, that's not possible." And lo and behold, he brought in Death of Superman, and I was like, "Holy crap! Comics are amazing. This is so cool."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's actually cool,
It was
man.
good until he said middle school. And I was like, come on, man. I was already working 3 jobs at the time. Middle school. What the hell just happened there? No, that's awesome.
Well, John.
No, so go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to. Dennis, do you have one more thing you want to ask?
No, I just
Okay.
I just wanted to let the audience know this is what it's like, guys. This is the importance of what Jesse and I talk about when you go to these conventions. It's not about, oh, I got this book or I got that book. It's about building a relationship with a guy like John. Every time he calls me, we have a conversation that transcends what it is. That it transcends just, hey, we're making money. It's about the art and the evolution of both of us as a retailer, as an artist, as friends. We look forward to running into each other, and when we don't run into each other, we have an avenue to talk afterwards. It's what Jesse talks about. It's about building the team that you are on the brand with. And I'm on a brand with John. John's on with my brand. I think you've only done action figure variants for 2 other retailers, maybe 3.
Oh yeah, two,
Yeah.
2 or 3 at the most.
Yeah. And, it's just a pleasure because that all started with me just being that bearded guy standing there to go buy your book.
Being
You were
Dennis.
cool.
Yeah.
Like that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Like,
Be cool. Yeah.
yeah, just don't be a dick.
Yep.
That's a great saying. That's what I live my life to. Don't be a dick. So, hey, man, you are more than welcome to come back anytime. And we're going to bug you probably every once in a while to get you back on here. But, yeah, thanks for coming on. And if you ever just want to come shoot the shit about comics or toys or action figures or anything, there's a spot for you.
Don't forget, guys.
I appreciate
this
it.
bundle is coming to you if you comment in the chat after the show's over. And then get over to John's website. These are available. Are they available right now?
They will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
There
Yeah.
we go.
And we've been talking about these all week, so you guys can find the links for them in the description at the end of the show and also in the chat. I've dropped them, and you guys know how to get to JTC's website. It's one of the websites we're all already signed up on, so I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to be scoring some sweet JTC covers over the next couple of days, and already have.
There you go.
So
9899's available too, baby.
There
that's
you
what
go.
we're talking about. So thank you so much for coming on, man, and we appreciate you and hope to see you again.
Rock on, gentlemen. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
take care.
Good stuff. Holy cow, man. What a great dude. That was the type of creator interview that I love doing on these shows because, he's just down to talk. He's down to chit chat. He's telling us the history about everything. And, man, I love hearing it. I love hearing the old school stuff.
It's what when you and I first started talking, and then Jesse and I started talking. It was kind of the catalyst at the very end when Jesse and I said, "Let's pull the trigger and do this." These are the kind of people that we want to bring to the YouTube space. This is the kind of stories that aren't out there, And because Jesse and I live these stories every weekend, every day, you know, in our day-to-day lives, we wanted to share that with the audience. And audience, we just love reading the chat and the comments. And we try to chime in when we can.
Right.
But this is what we want to keep bringing you. So keep watching and we'll keep doing it, man.
Yeah,
Amen.
and I think the great thing about it is when you're experiencers in the comic book world, you know, Dennis said we do live this every day, but the artists actually live this every day too. And they do have a passion, not just doing comics, but they actually have a passion for comics. And, you know, there are artists out there that are great artists that have never read a comic book. And those guys are great about talking about their art, but that's as far as it goes. So when you have this inner passion, you know, grows up as a Star Wars fan, doing a Star Wars fan, you know, Dennis, I then bring up, because I know Dennis was there the day when Marvel took over for Dark Horse. And from Dark Horse, and Dark Horse was up on the stage at the Retailer Summit. David Gabriel comes up and starts talking about what Marvel is doing and all that, and we're sitting there saying, well, wait a minute, are they then talk about Star Wars? No, he doesn't talk about Star Wars. So he starts, okay, thank you very much, and halfway off the stage he runs back and he says, oh, I forget, plays the Star Wars theme song. You know, there's this, you say, don't be a dick and all that stuff. There's this moment where we also said, okay, change of the guard. What do we then do? Dennis comes out. He starts doing these exclusive covers. JTC comes in. He starts doing these covers. So we start a new tradition, a new culture with Star Wars again, coming from a older culture that kind of was pedaling out, right? So very, very good stuff.
But before we end tonight, you guys, we want to hit really quick on Free Comic Book Day. It was a big weekend for comic books and Free Comic Book Day and May the 4th and Star Wars. And it's supposed to be an even bigger day, in my opinion. I talked to a lot of people over the last week, and, you know, I'm hearing up and down things about Free Comic Book Day. So I really wanted to talk to these two guys who are longtime comic book shop owners and, you know, been in the industry for a long time. Their thoughts on Free Comic Book Day this week. Now, Jesse's is probably going to be a little bit different because I think for the first time in many, many years, Jesse was sitting on a beach on Free Comic Book Day personally, yes. Right? So you took it off for the first time.
Yeah. I this is what I've learned from being, and if you go to YouTube and you just punch in Just James Comics Midnight FCBDs and seeing 1,000 people in line at midnight, just to come in at midnight, right? What we have noticed is the less you do for the event, the more volume you do. The more event stuff you do, the less volume you do. So this year I said, what if I went to my team who every year for the last 15 years I've said, you got to do it this way and you got to do that. And this is what we're then doing and put the books. So, and this is how you decide who gets what. I'm going to let my team do it. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm just going to say, make sure you open up the doors at whatever time you want, right? Close whenever you want. But tell me what is going to go on. And the only way I could look at that was figures and bags in hand. And we had our #1 Free Comic Book Day in our history with me 2,800 miles away. Now, I could have been there. We could have done the same volume. But the whole point is I am seeing this evolution, and through conversations that I have had, intense conversations with huge stores on Free Comic Book Day, a lot of these guys are actually saying, do I really need to do this next year? Or do I just have my own comics and give it out and go from there? So that's what I'm hearing on my end.
Well, and I'll be once again the complete opposite of Jesse on this one. I had my worst Free Comic Book Day in 19 years, and I'll tell you why. So this year, like 2 years ago, I was like, hey, I don't know if Free Comic Book's going to be a thing with, you know, I'm doing a new concept. It doesn't rely on Free Comic Book Day, but I'll do it because I have so many free comic books left over from all the previous years. I'm going to do it. I'm going to it'll be a weird half-ass attempt. I'm not going to buy the newest, hottest free comic book day comics. I'm just going to give away all the old stuff I have. And it was a huge success. We processed over 500 people inside the mall. We give 10 comic books to kids. We give 5 comic books to adults.
Right.
We had a giant wall of over 200 books to choose from. It was great. Last year, we said, okay, let's do it the same thing. We processed over 700. I think it was 740, 750 people for free comic book day. 10 for kids, 5 for adults. This year, my mall came to me and said, hey, Dennis, we have great, exciting news. I'm like, oh, what is it? We have a thing called Celebration of Children that hasn't done the event in 4 years since COVID. And they're going to come back to the mall and bring all the excitement of Celebration of Children on Free Comic Book Day. And I'm like, okay. So my event, which is a big event put on by the comic book store, is going to be part of this other event that gives tons of freebies away from all the people of all the community. And I was a little bit hesitant, but this was the year I said, you know what, I'm going to buy $1,000 worth of free comics to kind of replenish what I had
Sure.
gone through. And I can tell you, it's exactly as I thought it would go. Everybody there was only there for the freebies, which is like a lot of, I would say 90% of the people that go to Free Comic Book Day are just there for the freebies. You're hoping to get that 10% to become a customer. We did the same thing we always did. All you have to do is go into the store over there, across the way from the mall, and because we have this giant wall of free comics, and you just got to go into that store and get the little coupon. They'll give it to you at the front desk. And people were like, oh, no, thank you. I don't want to do anything for my freebies. But you just have to go into the comic book store over there, and they'll give you the coupon. You come over, you get the free comics. No, I'm good, thanks. They're giving away free suckers at the Monroe Community College booth. We're just going to go over there and get a free sucker. And they're making birdhouses over at the Monroe Community College, the health services booth over here.
Right.
And they got a free bag if you go. I'm like, I'm fighting to make you take my free comics.
Sure.
It was also, if you are Free Comic Book Day and you give the free comic books away, people feel like they're grateful for it. And then they spend a few dollars. Maybe they'll buy a $5 comic book. Maybe they'll buy a $10 action figure. They're thanking you by saying, oh, you gave my kid 10 comics. You gave me 5. We're going home with 20 free comic books for our family. I'll throw you a little bit of money. Thanks a lot. And so your sales, you don't expect it, but the sales are up there as a higher than average day. We had a lower than average weekend. It amazed me. I haven't packed up this many free comic books to put away to use for next year since the great rainstorm of Free Comic Book Day 2013 or whenever we had this. It was just, I was like, oh my God. So I just say Free Comic Book Day has to be a comic book store's day. You can't put a convention on during it. You can't do it. I've tried a lot of different variations. I actually put on a convention at a flea market, and we gave away 1 free comic at the flea market across the street from our store and said, hey, you get 10 more if you go across the street. Didn't work.
Sure.
And it didn't work the other way. It's like Halloween. They want everybody to hit as many stores as possible. In fact, the last people that hit us was a family of 5 people who all bought Superman shirts at TJ Maxx, I think it was.
Right.
And they all had matching Superman shirts. And we were the 8th store that they hit. And as we were packing up the free comics, we were their 8th store. And they said, oh my God, we should have come here first. You have way more free comics than all the other 7 stores.
Right, sure, yeah.
And I'm just like, Jesus, it was just one of those things. But I'm going to go through a couple books that I pulled that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
This book right here was the #1 across the board pickup for most Free Comic Book Day people. It's a Teen Plus. We actually put it in the kids area. Kids took it. Adults took it. Actually, Brian, can you put me on big? It's a Tokyo. I've never heard of it. It's a Tokyo Pop Special Pilot Edition, Far Cry. I think it's a part of a video game too.
Yeah, Far Cry wasn't Far Cry a video game?
Creation.
Yeah.
This thing, I just say, comic book industry. If you're not paying attention to this book, you're going to miss out on a generation, because I handed this to more teenagers, more young adults, more mid-adults. I would say every kid from 12 to 30 picked up this book. I will say this also, if Emmett's in the chat, I fucking hate this.
Yeah. So for those of you guys who don't know, what he's showing right here is CGC has offered to grade Free Comic Book Day books with a free special Free Comic Book Day label, which is, I get it. They're trying to figure out stuff to do, but grading Free Comic Book Day books is not the way to go.
But here's the thing. I paid for this book.
Yeah.
Tokyo Pop. And actually, it's not just Tokyo Pop. This was on the back of a lot of comics. So I'm guessing this was literally a coordinated effort with Free Comic Book Day.
Yes.
You are not paying for me to pass this out. This comic book costs the same as that comic book and that comic book. It costs the exact same to me. This comic book has a Spy versus Spy in-house ad from Warner Brothers. Okay? That's fine. I have no problem with that. But if you collect money, you better be giving me some money or offsetting the cost of this book for the retailer.
Yeah, if you're selling ads. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then, so I want to talk about a couple more. This is the kind of stuff we need way more of.
Yep.
This was, I would say, with all ages kids, this was the #1 book that every kid took. I didn't talk about that either. Apparently, so if you're not paying attention, if you're not a retailer, so now we have the green, that's for all ages. That's for the young teens, and then it's a darker blue for the older teens. And then so that's my other point of contention, though. This is the young teens. What the fuck is this hairy-chested, hairy-nippled Superman? This is. Here's the thing: when you use a spot, I know Mad Magazine doesn't sell that well anymore, but this is not a young teen light blue with the hairy nipples, hairy chest. Let's get a nice look at it there.
And then says also, crap.
Yeah.
Crap. I'm already in costume. This is not where our industry needs to be right now, guys. I'm not calling for boycotts and torches and pitchforks. No. I'm just saying we could do better. Guys, we can do a lot better than this.
Well, I think there were some really good ones. I think there was that one that was that from that small publisher that went to Comics Pro and basically said, we're going to send whoever wants our comic book, whatever retailer, whatever LCS wants our book. If you contact us and ask for it, we're going to send it to you for free. We're not going to charge you anything. And I don't think there's very many people that took them up on that offer, so I think that could be a spec play. Yeah. There was a really good Energon Universe Free Comic Book Day that told 3 great stories, all within the Energon Universe. Good job, Skybound, Robert Kirkman.
But here's the thing. I'll tell you about that. So it was, I believe, a Teen Plus. It was a dark blue, I believe.
Yeah.
I can't remember, so don't quote me on this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to try to appeal to young kids for Transformers, you've got to use that new
But this
stuff.
Isn't appealing to young kids for Transformers. This is for adults.
Right, exactly. This was definitely shooting up most of the people that took that were 35, 40, and up.
Yep.
I ordered almost as much as that as I ordered Pokemon and One Piece. And we stacked up probably way more of those than we did any of the other books.
Yeah,
One Piece
I think the bigger thing about Free Comic Book Day is realizing, we're talking about this great stuff that you're getting and all this, but a Free Comic Book Day is just a day.
Yeah.
We got 364 other days that we got to do. And so,
hey, Jesse,
365.
it's a leap year this year.
365, right. Three Santos said, whatever, how you say that.
56.
So, at the end of the day, so when you start hearing these people coming out and saying, I'm never going to do this again. This will be my last Free Comic Book Day. It's just one day. How are you determining your whole rest of your year just on one day? If Dennis is working on his 10%, he's just working on that 10% extra that he's going to get the next following week. So I think with Free Comic Book Day, you have to kind of deal with it as a catalyst to bring you more customers in the future and not gauge your year just because, and I know you had a downtime, Dennis, but you're right back to the Sunday. What are we selling on Sunday? I get how you do it. So
no, Sunday was killer. Sunday was like the best Sunday at a
Yeah, there you go.
The mall wasn't full of children, and all of the people who didn't want to be around the celebration of children showed up, and we actually did more on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the thing with Free Comic Book Day, we need to treat it like a day, but not treat it like our year. And I think if you do your business like that, Free Comic Book Day is just an extra day. I don't partake in the Halloween Fest and Batgirl Day.
Which was fucked up from the beginning of its inception.
Exactly.
Well, can we talk about that? Can we talk about? I want to talk about this right here. So this was a big news thing that happened right before Free Comic Book Day.
Oh, we have to give a little background though, guys.
Yeah.
So Joe Fields is the owner of Flying Colors, and Joe Fields created Free Comic Book Day in 2001 as just something he wanted to do. And it became what we all in the industry now refer to as Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, Flying Colors is his comic book store
This is the godfather
in San Francisco.
of Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, this is the guy who created it. And Flying Colors is the name of his comics book store. So here we go. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. 1 second, guys. The volume wasn't up very
by the way, while you're rewinding that, do you guys remember when news reporters dressed up and didn't wear their fancy tank top?
Yeah.
Suits.
Free Comic Book Day is celebrated worldwide, and more than 2 decades ago, the annual event was founded at a comic store in Concord. And on Saturday, Flying Colors Comics will distribute thousands of free comics. But as Crowdforce Sweep Jagal reports, this year the event is bittersweet because it will be the last one at that storied location.
Andrew's imagination has been coming to life on paper at Flying Colors Comics and other cool stuff in Concord since he was a kid. Infatuated with the storylines and camaraderie with other comic enthusiasts.
Just the environment, the stories you can get out of comic books. It's a fun vibe.
It pains Andrew to know this storefront's time at Oak Grove Plaza is coming to a close. Owner Joe Fields says the landlord is not offering to renew his lease, which ends in January. Another tough blow for the shopping center that lost another mom and pop business, Heads Up Sports, last year.
We've had a good run here, and we don't own the building, so we really have no say in as to whether they want us to continue here or not.
Field is determined to keep the business open in some capacity by possibly reopening at a new location in town, though he has not determined a closing date. For now, he is focusing his efforts on Free Comic Book Day, Saturday, May 4th. Field has been in business 35 years and founded the event 23 years ago, which has caught on worldwide.
I think 66 different countries, and more than 1 million people attend Free Comic Book Day events. We've given away tens of millions of comics.
The day includes cosplay and other fun and will give patrons a chance to celebrate the store's impact on the community.
Kids who were struggling readers find comics, and all of a sudden their test scores go way up.
I know it sucks that the store is closing, but I hope they find a new location and can keep it going.
All that we've really tried to do is spread happiness through comics, and we've done that pretty well for a long, long time.
Saturday's event starts at 11 o'clock in the morning and runs through 7 o'clock at night here at the storefront on Treat Boulevard.
Man, that's a bummer. And like they said, it's not necessarily the end. He put up this post. He said, the headline on this news story may make you think that Flying Colors Comics is going out of business, but we're happy to report that's just not happening. Saturday certainly will be the final free comic book day event in the shop where the world's largest free comic book event got its start. But Flying Colors Oak Grove Plaza era coming to an end is hopefully leading into a new and beautiful era for Flying Colors. Stay tuned.
So I talked to Joe, and if it, I got to say this just right. He would have probably been on the show tonight if he wasn't busy making that last part of the statement possible. But I'll wait till we get Joe on to talk about that. Hopefully,
yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed, everybody.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. I think when you get into leasing a place, it doesn't matter how long you're there. It doesn't matter your loyalty. It doesn't matter how you've never missed a month. You've never owed them everything. You open up on time. You close on time. You're quiet. You do your things. You pay your cams. There are just landlords out there that decide that they can bring in someone else in their mind that's better, right? Mm-hmm. Branding wise.
What did he say was going in there? A bagel shop?
Yeah.
It's always a tricky thing. We have a building we've been trying to rent that's 35,000 square feet. The guy won't rent it to me because we're a comic book store. He just won't, because we're a comic book store. If I said, "Oh, we're going to sell candles," he'd, "Oh, let's do it."
Well, and that's one of the meetings I'm having with my mall. It's like, hey guys, I brought in 500 unique this year. I brought in 750 unique people this other year. I gave out 225 people worth of free comics this year. I either have to decide whether I want to, because they've already announced the Celebration of Children is going to be there next year on Free Comic Book Day. I have to decide whether I'm going to move Free Comic Book Day to another day and just have it as Wonder World's Free Comic Book Day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to take place in the event that when everybody else is doing it.
I won't be the 8th stop or the first stop on that family of 5 wearing the Superman shirt. I would be my own island. Which, I mean, if the chat knows me, if you guys know me, I'm fucking Dennis Barger. I can do it whenever the fuck I want.
Yeah,
sure. I'm giving away shit nobody else has, and I don't have to wait for scraps with a goddamn CGC fucking logo on the back of it.
Well,
I'll give away what I want to give away when I want to give it away. I'll give away. I just bought out all the inventory of a publisher. I'll give away fucking trade paperbacks if I want to give away.
Yeah, and the big thing about it is, yes, we know Free Comic Book Day is a trademark day. Free comics is not.
Right.
So you could do any day you want.
Now, and like Jesse, like we were talking, I would love to do a Black Friday event. Black Friday, free comics. You got to wait in line for a $5 toaster at Walmart. Guess what? You don't have to wait in line. Come over and get some free comics at the mall.
Real quick, speaking of CGC, big news came out today. Let's go ahead and play this. These are the new labels for the JSA authenticated CGC slabs. And I think they look good. I'll be honest. I think they look really good.
I'll agree. It looks good. But you know, like I said, like I continue to say, the odds that CGC is going to fuck up your book or give you a low grade because their buddies have a better grade, or they want to give their buddies a 9.9 and they give you a 9.8. Have at it. Enjoy CGC.
Well, here's the interesting thing. The pricing is much cheaper than CBCS. And this was the one thing that CBCS really had above CGC that, in my opinion, kind of the majority of people that sent their book to CBCS that's, flipping or using these to make money was doing it just for the signed books that they're getting authenticated. And now that CBCS does not have that and CGC has it for even cheaper, I want to know what your guys' thoughts. Do you guys think CBCS, there's any reason for CBCS? I mean, what do they have now?
Well, I'll go first because I already know what Dennis is going to say, and we'll give Dennis the bigger platform on this one. There will be more CBCS people that go to CGC because of this than there will ever be CGC people going to CBCS. So what CBCS has to do is they have to maintain and figure out what that growth rate is, 3 to 5% every year. I don't know what their numbers are. I don't want to put numbers in anybody's head. And so I think CGC is doing what they should be doing. They should be evolving. And visually, this ticks away from someone that might say, well, it's CGC, I've been with CBC. Oh, that looks cool. They're going with this cool factor, right? And that's very important. I'll give you one secret little note here. eBay 2 days ago came out with this. We will guarantee everything you buy on eBay is real.
eBay Live?
Yeah, eBay as a whole.
eBay as a
come
whole.
out and said, everything is guaranteed. If it turns out fake, we will take care of it for you. Obviously, that's posturing and all that. But there's really no look or feel to it. Well, this is kind of a look and feel thing. It's like, oh, that looks pretty cool. Let me try this. Go ahead, Dennis.
So if you pull up my Facebook post from just today, and it's funny that this all happened today, and you'll see a comment from Ultra Maximus on there. He was one of the first ones to comment. So this is the anniversary of the giant post-COVID highs for UF4. Did you find it there?
Yeah, hold on.
So let me just say, I chose CBCS because I wanted accuracy. I want an actual guarantee of my grade. So that is when did I share that? 2021. So that's 3 years ago. I had the highest recorded sale for UF4 Pacelli second print, 9.8. I don't consider CGC even a viable option. One of the guys in the chat was, I just got murdered with my CGC. It was at Three Rivers. Yeah. The amount of people who I know and trust to look at a book and know when and to send it in and when not to send it in, and I see them do a CGC opening, I literally just cringe when I see them open it. Because I'm like, okay, dude, he did not send a 9.4 in. That's either they did something to it, or that's somebody who has a friend that
fucking Ultra Maximus, man.
I
love Ultra, but you got to get off of this long short shit, man. He's been complaining about long short shilling for longer than anybody I can think, and long short is not a fucking shilling.
And dude, here's the thing. I would have cashed out all of, I showed my box to you guys. I had over 100 of this and the second print Bagleys. I was very happy to get the highest recorded sale. But the thing is I stand by CBCS. I stand by the price of the book. I stand by the quality of the slab and the grading. I don't settle for less. If you can honestly tell me CGC has been giving all of their customers their very best and most accurate grading, then go ahead, send it off to them. Trust JSA. There's a lot of people that are talking about JSA and their authentication problems.
Every company has problems, though. Like, there's not there's not one grading company or authentication company out there that doesn't have problems. So
exactly, but for me to to go, Brian, you're right. CBCS just closed the fucking doors because JSA and CGC are going to own the entire market, and there's not one benefit. The benefit is if you stand by the grade and you stand by the company, you will make the money.
I just don't think they will, though. I think that
I just showed you 3 years ago.
But that's not the way anymore. That's not the way. That's not how it is anymore, Dennis. The sales. If you look at it, that was 3.
Look up Invincible 8.5. Go look up Invincible 8.5 on eBay. I just got the highest recorded sale for an Invincible 8.5.
That's a hot book. That's a hot book, though. You, Dennis, you cannot honestly try to convince any of us out here that CBCS books on a consistent basis are going to get more than CGC books on the secondary market. That's idiotic. Every once in a while, it'll happen.
But here's the thing. Are you so fucking desperate to sell books that you have to go for the quick flip? I'm not. Brian,
no, you're not, but the majority of people are. But the majority,
fuck you money. I can hold out until I sell it or not sell it at all.
I know you are, Dennis, but the majority of people out here that are flipping books to pay bills don't have that type of money. That's why they're doing it.
Flippers. That's not my business model. So
I know it's not yours.
Away. Run to CGC, submit all the books to CGC, flip the fuck out of them. I'll have the book in a 9.8 when CGC crashes to the ground and undergrade gate comes out. And we find out about 5 more employees that were stealing books. And you find when you get your books back with the corners banged in and they tell you it's a 9.2 instead of the 9.8 you sent them, then have at it. Keep using CGC. I'll be over here with 9.8s. All my Dave Stevens that come back 9.8, I'll have them all just waiting to sell. And I'll get top dollar for them because I'm not selling them at CBCS lower price.
Yeah, I'm catching the tail end of this, but
you missed out on a good one, Jesse.
Yeah, I believe it or not, I could hear Dennis in the other room with my headsets off. I was like, "What the hell is going on there?" But here's the thing, and I want to put this in a business perspective. For every 100 comics sold, we need to put in perspective how many of those 100 comics sold are actually graded books. All right. And I know there's a difference between dollar value and unit value, but you're talking about maybe 8 to 10 graded books for every 100 books. All right. It might be a little bit lower from that. So it becomes a perspective on how you're going to do your business model. Dennis says, listen, I can hold out. I don't need to have the money right away, versus the flipper who's flipping because they need to buy the next item. And the problem we have that is different 8 years ago, or even not even this, pre-COVID, is today on eBay there is 78,000 people selling comic books, yet there's only 13 to 1,500 comic book stores in the world. So we're in a different world of selling, and platforms are a lot different now that allow you to sell graded books at higher prices, right? Auction houses, live streaming. You'll find out mostly in live streaming, people, that's where they lose money. They don't really make money on live streaming grading books. So you do have to stay on platforms that are solidified, are time sensitive. But yeah, when you get into graded, we can talk all we want, but it is the smaller part of the business. But I will tell you that smarter part of the business spends a lot of money.
So it says here, the introductory pricing for JSA autograph authentication is simple. Only $25 per autograph, no matter the fair market value of the book. So if you'd like JSA to also grade the autograph, so you can actually have them grade the autograph too, you can choose JSA autograph grading for an additional $25. I think that's stupid. People are going to do it. I think it's dumb. It's ridiculous to do in comics. The only reason to do that is if it has a smudge, or if it doesn't. I think autograph grading is fucking ridiculous. So I would suggest nobody does that. That's a waste of money. But $25 per autograph book, there's a lot of people out there that have J. Scott Campbell books they've bought from his site that he signs, or that have been waiting to send in to CGC that are CGC people, or maybe they want to save a little bit money. They have a bunch getting ready to go to CBCS. Now they're able to save what, 10, 20 bucks.
And a funny part about history on grading books, keep in mind, you used to get negatives, right? Well, you still do. You get negatives for unwitnessed books. And the second they found out that they can make money if they witness it, it changed, right? So if it's not witnessed, it's not really a signature. Yeah, if they witness it, it's actually a signature.
Or if you're Jim Starlin or Rob Liefeld and they don't actually witness it, but still charge the amount of money and gave none of it to the artist, you have to backpedal and make up for that shit sandwich that they served you.
Yeah. So grading books is a very unique, always evolving item, right, in the comic book industry, a genre that's, it's a customer. It's very tough that I see with the younger guys that come in and say, oh, I got this Secret Wars #8 graded. I'm selling it for 9.8. Oh, what's the story about? I've never seen that one before. Well, I don't know, but I got a 9.8 and it's worth XYZ. So that's a whole different customer base that we have coming in that doesn't read comics. They're not sequential buyers, right? So unique part of the industry. It's needed in the industry because all the other parts of the industry have them. But I will tell you this, as someone who, I know someone had posted that they've gone to more comic book stores across the nation. I could probably challenge them on that. But regardless, I will tell you, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've gone to over 500 plus comic book stores. 10% had graded books in it, right?
Yeah.
It's again, I don't have graded books in my store. 8,000 square foot store, no graded books. So it's.
But Jesse, don't you want the highest value for it?
But I can get the highest value on a raw book and let that person take the chance on the grade. So that's a margin thing. You're asking me a margin thing, right? If I pay $1, I can get 10, or I send it in and pay 40, wait whatever it is, 3 months to get it back, 6 months to get it back. I'm hedging my money way too long when I'm a guy that's buying a collection every single day, right?
Yeah.
So I have to turn and burn. So I don't have that luxury that stores do when I see them send it. Oh, and then they get this big bump, right? They get $400 for a book that I only got $25. Well, great. But I've also sold $125 books during that time. So that's a decision you make as a store owner. And I think it also is the customer base that you actually create.
Yeah. Well, you guys, we're going to be talking about this much more over the next couple of months. Obviously, it's going to be a big deal. I want to say thank you to everybody that's hung out with us tonight. We have 75 live at the end of the show. And I want to tell everybody before you bounce out, we're going to send you over to our boy Richie and Yee's live show that they have going right now. Over on Spec Media. We're going to send you guys over there. It's going to automatically send you over there. If you haven't seen their show, spend some time watching it before you bounce. I'm sure you're going to love it. Shout out to everybody out there that's hitting that like button and that thumbs up. Remember, after the show is done being played, you guys, go comment on the show to win these great John Tyler Christopher covers from Wonder World Comics that Dennis is going to be nice enough to give away. We're going to announce the winner on the next show. So remember,
you could also, make sure you sub up and
have to
hit that thumbs up button.
Yep, you got to be subbed up, hit that thumbs up button, all that fun stuff. And Jesse,
are we talking about Thursday yet or no?
No, we haven't talked about Thursday yet.
We haven't confirmed Thursday.
So, but we're going to talk. I'm going to call you guys immediately following the show. So let's plan on that.
It's going to be the most nerdy episode of the special shows we've ever had.
Or maybe we shall say nerdrotic. Enjoy Richie and Yee. Much love, you guys. Tell them we sent you. Adios.